this one, I think. In accordance with RSA 3195B for the acceptance of unanticipated funds from the United States Treasury in the amount of $205,799.92 to be utilized for the offset of the solar array loan and will be paid within 30 days. Anne, do you want to speak to that at all?
Actually, Grace is on. She has a lot more information that she can offer to you on that.
I like that as well. Hi, Grace.
Can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Okay. So that was the 30%, what they call the direct pay from the Inflation Reduction Act. Thank goodness we finally got it. We were kind of, well, I personally was on the edge of my seat, hoping it would come in. And sure enough, Anne one day right before Christmas said, yoo-hoo, look at this. So we had promised those funds to be paid directly to the loan, the CDFA loan. That was part of them agreeing to finance the entire solar array. So that's all I can say about that.
So assuming we accept those funds tonight, those are immediately paid towards the principal on the loan for the solar array.
Correct.
Any other questions from the board about it? Comments? All right, well, I'll take any public comment on the acceptance of those funds during this public hearing.
Good job, Grace.
Thank you, Grace.
Thank you, Grace. Yeah, I know it was a lot to chase that, and the town's appreciative to get that money.
Well, kudos to Anne too for putting up with me and all my texting and one more thing we have to do. Anyway, we're good.
All right, with that, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for a vote.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept the funds in the sum of $205,799.92 to be utilized for the offset of the solar array loan from the United States Treasury.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. One knocked down.
Zach, do you want to do the mid-state?
Yeah, I was going to say we have 5 minutes technically before we're supposed to open the other public hearing, so let's take the pilot agreement we have in front of us. Scott, well, I can introduce this, I suppose. We've been in negotiation with Mid-State Health for a pilot agreement. It's a 5-year term, $10,000 a year. In front of the board is the legal agreement for that pilot. And so if we vote to approve it, we also need to extend signing authority to Scott Whedon to sign the pilot.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the pilot agreement and to extend the authority to sign it to Scott.
A second.
Any discussion about that? The one thing I will say is a big thank you both to Scott and to our legal counsel, Will Warren, who did a lot of work to get this agreement to where it is, and it's appreciated to have reached this milestone. Any other comments? Anybody?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, as promised, that was a quick one. Took us a whole minute. Are either of these other elements
I
short?
have a few
Paul?
signatures. I don't know.
Yeah, hit us with a couple of signatures. Let's knock those out.
All right, so
We
we
also
have.
the town manager's report just.
Oh, that's a good point. I skipped over the town manager.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
that's,
long.
that's a long one. Let's do the signatures.
Yeah, Scott's not going to get it done in 4 minutes, so let's
We shouldn't rush him.
do the
No.
signatures.
All right, so we have a 2025 in-house abatement. This is for property 2859 Dick Brown Road. The data conversion had an error. The entire parcel is enrolled in current use, and the first acre was taken out. The abatement is $1,776. Second item I have is a notice of intent to cut wood. This is for property at Texas Hill Road, 358 acre lot, 358 acres projected to be cut. The next item I have is a current use, land use change tax. This is for a property at 52 Piper Notch Road. The parcel was taken out of current use, and the assessment on that area that was taken out, $5,600 with a land use change tax assessment of $560.
Where is that located?
Piper Notch Road.
Thank you.
The next item I have, which you all should have received in your packages, these are the review of exemption properties for the fiscal year 2025. They did begin a process of reviewing all the exemptions in January of '25. We have 26 applications for eligible to qualify. All entities except one filed paperwork timely. Properties that have leased areas were inspected to keep a true understanding of the properties, portions of the properties which are eligible to receive a charitable exemption. After our meeting tonight with legal, I think I'd like to review this again. Scott, we'd like to review this again before the board actually approves it after the decision that they just made. So I'm going to hold this one for now.
Okay,
All right.
I think that makes sense.
That's all I had to do.
Awesome.
You didn't
Nice
spend enough
job.
time.
I just,
A little slower.
Too fast. And then sheet coming around. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I missed it. There was 2. Thank you. Hey, and it's 5:15. There we go. All right. So we're going to have a public hearing on, this is the first public hearing for the 26-27 budget, which will be voted on at town meeting on March 11th. And then again, as I said earlier, the second public budget hearing will be on Thursday night. For anybody who missed this evening or wants to, come back with follow-up questions that weren't clear tonight. Also, at the second public budget hearing, we'll do a full reading of the warrant. So all of the different articles that are going to be up for vote on the 11th, as well as any of the ones that are going to be on the ballot as well, which there will be a few this year on the ballot. I want to start by introducing the overall
I think they can see.
budget. No,
Is that
I haven't.
other monitor
I haven't-
on?
I haven't started sharing it yet. Oh, is it on? I don't know.
Yep.
Looks like it's dark.
Yeah, yep.
yeah, what's your board's?
Is it?
I think that should be
Is it-
good, Ted.
We can't get the upper one on?
Is this the remote for the other one? I don't know.
Might be. I was just thinking that the board can't see my deck.
I kind of can.
Is this remote for that upper TV?
I can try here.
Sorry, I can't reach it. I would say we may need Jonathan to come save us.
Was it the right remote?
Yep,
Just didn't have
seems
an
like it.
angle on it?
Yeah, you didn't have the right angle.
HVAC my one, Kevin.
Once it's on.
You start watching Taskmaster at all?
Good.
Oh, it was so good. I'll tell you about it later.
We'll have to talk about it later.
Yeah.
All right, so we're not getting your stream up there though. That's only the cameras.
Yeah, we're not.
Screens.
That may be yeah, Jonathan's got it.
Got it.
Okay.
He can look at it.
Now everybody can see everything. Okay, first off, I always think it's good for us to review how did we get here? How did we get to this point? The overall budget process starts in July and August when the departments meet with Scott and with the finance director, and they go through all of their different budget requests, all their different needs, and the first kind of draft comes out of that result. That happens again in July, August. Then we move into October when the Capital Improvement Plan Committee meets. So that's the CIP committee. And you'll see the CIP committee members are listed here. That committee is chaired by Sue Wood. Thank you, Sue. I see you in the audience for all your hard work on that. The Capital Improvement Plan, for those who aren't super familiar, it's a 6-year plan that tries to flatten the major capital investments that we need to make as a town over a longer period of time, and so that we're thinking not just in terms of this year's budget, but what other things in town need replacing, whether that's equipment, buildings, roads, et cetera. We try to plan that out on a kind of a rolling 6-year window, gets readjusted each year, continuing to look out that kind of distance. That is non-binding to either us or the budget committee, but those come as recommendations to say this is how we see the investments we need to make as a town over time. Then we move into budget committee meetings where we review the overall budgets, both department budgets, requests, capital requests, put together kind of a draft, kind of a second draft budget proposal. You can see the budget committee is also listed here with those folks. There's a lot of overlap between the CIP committee and the budget committee because there just is a lot of overlap in that work, and it's nice to have consistency between those two groups. That group then presents the proposed budget to the select board, and all the department heads come in to the select board and talk about these are our requests, these are why we need these things, this is what we're recommending. That culminates in tonight's first budget hearing. So this is what I would call the final draft of the budget. There is still an opportunity to make adjustments at this point. It is not finalized, it's not locked. We can take your feedback this evening if there are concerns. There are some limitations on some of that stuff, but in general, this is a great opportunity. Really glad to have a lot of people in the audience, because if you have opinions, we want to hear them. That's what we're here for. That's why you're here. Then again, we'll have a second budget hearing on Thursday. Any adjustments that we have to make tonight, or any clarifications that we can't give because we just don't have the information at our fingertips, we'll make sure are clarified at the second hearing, and that will sort of produce that the finalized budget that will go on the warrant and be presented to the town for voting at town meeting. And then you can see the dates for those two things, which I've already mentioned tonight, but there they are again. So that's kind of the process. Just want to make sure everybody has that in their head. There's been a lot of work up until this point, but we aren't fully finalized, so it's great that you're here with input. Okay, some other notes and disclaimers, which I'll get past this soon, but I think it's, again, for folks who haven't been intimately involved with the budget process, it's really useful to understand some aspects of this. Any mentions that we're going to have to the impact to the tax rate are estimated. The tax rate won't get set until November, something like that. November, based on what's voted for, based on revenues, which can change, right? The amount of money that we can take in changes. Things like the money we just accepted from the Treasury affect that. Agreements with surrounding towns, all of those sorts of things affect our revenues, which we can't predict at this point. We don't know what those are going to be. So the tax rate's highly affected by revenue. The other piece is that these are gross appropriations. So that means, for example, if we have to take a loan out to do something, the full cost of that loan and the payment on that loan are included in the baseline budget, even if the loan's going to be paid, we're taking that money from the bank, that's going to pay for the thing, and then the actual impact to the tax rate is the payment on that loan, but the full value of that loan is reflected in the gross appropriation. So it's a little bit complicated. It would be like in your home budget, if you had to put the entire cost of the new car that you were buying in the budget, even if your payment is only going to be $300 a month, right? So the gross appropriations are a little bit complicated to think of in that way. It makes the numbers a little bit more inflated than what they actually become in terms of what we have to go raise and appropriate from the town. And the last note is that in recent years, we've done really well with our budget management throughout the year. We haven't had to do the thing where it's like nobody spends any money for the past few months. Normally we have come to the end of a budget year with surplus that we're able to put into the undesignated fund and then use to offset the appropriations, or in recent years, we've been sort of building that money to get to a point where we had enough in our savings that the Department of Revenue was comfortable with our financial position to have kind of that rainy day kind of money if something very large happens. For example, we have a cruiser that gets into a car accident. We have to have the money to get that cruiser back on the road. Those are the sorts of things that would come out of the undesignated fund, other than just reducing tax implication. So those are the three things. These are estimated tax impacts because we don't know the revenue. These are gross appropriations, which means they are slightly inflated because they're not necessarily what we need to appropriate from the town from taxation. And recent years we've had surplus, and there's an undesignated fund that lets us also reduce some of these numbers. So context, it's a lot, I understand, but just want to make sure everybody has those contexts. The last note that I want to talk about is when we think about the Plymouth tax rate, we often forget that it's made up of four components. The component that we're here to talk about tonight is the town's component. Usually somewhere in the 40 to 45% of the overall budget is the town, or the overall tax implication is the town. Then the next big piece, usually the biggest piece, comes from the school. That's both the high school and the elementary school costs. And then we have a state fee that we have no control over as a community directly. That's how much the state needs us to pay in. And then the last one is the county. And so those ones are usually the lowest, but they do certainly have impact into the overall piece. We good with that concept, board? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So let's get into what we're actually talking about tonight, which is going to be the budget summary. I'm going to go through this from a high level, and then we will zoom in and we will look at it department by department, and then end with any of the capital projects, and then we'll land back on a summary page from there. So the biggest things that are going to be impacting the budget increases you're going to see tonight are the general raises that we have for the town employees, some of which are contractual due to union agreements, and some of which are for the employees that aren't unionized. We're looking at a really large increase in health benefits, both in terms of the direct cost of health insurance policies for the town, as well as dental, which I didn't explicitly note here, but it's significant this time. The next two items here are going to be separate warrant articles that the town will have an opportunity to vote on. We have been theoretically awarded, I don't know if that's the right term. The fire department applied for what's called a SAFER grant, and we were awarded it. We've applied for it many years, and we finally got awarded it. We are going to be putting that on the warrant as a special warrant article for the town to vote on. It's significant, it's large. Again, gross appropriations, everything that's a warrant article is included in the overall budget summary. Whether the town votes for it or not, it starts there, right? So the full cost. So SAFER grant's going to be included, so we'll touch on that a bunch. We have a proposed land purchase for a public safety building that's in here that will, again, be a separate warrant article that the town will be allowed to vote on. And, we'll see how that shows up in the various budget line items. It says fire ambulance and police dispatch. That's not actually accurate. It's
Police dispatch,
just police. It's just fire and ambulance. So we have a 1 year, 2 year. We have a 2-year union contract. So I'll fix that for the next budget hearing. And then there's a bunch of capitals for roads and equipment, which we'll get to at the end. All right. So how do we estimate the tax impact that's here? So we've got the operating budget appropriations, which are going to be all the different departmental budget line items that we're going to talk about. Then we have some special warrant article items, and then individual warrant article items. That all adds up to that almost $18 million number that you see there. And then we know what our anticipated revenue and credits will be based on what they were this year, but that's a very conservative estimate because Anne never wants to overestimate on our revenues. So our expectation is that we beat that number. That then generates the estimated taxes to be paid. We look at the overall town valuation. In this case, it's about $816 million. And then that is used to generate, assuming all of these things happen exactly as they are, every single warrant article item is approved, every single departmental item is approved, and the revenues are exactly what they are here. That would yield this tax rate. Again, that doesn't include any offsetting funds from the unallocated budget. So anyway, that's the start. Summary by area, you can see, and again, we're going to go into each of these in individuals, but this is kind of just the quick high-level summary. We've got increases to the general government, police, fire. You'll notice that fire number is very big. That's because of the SAFER grant. Highway, recycling and sanitation, go through nonprofits. We'll talk about parks and recreation. We'll talk about the library. We got this miscellaneous space that is various different small budget item areas that we'll talk about. Then we'll get into a capital and improvement, and then some of the anticipated encumbrances. So we'll get into this in a lot more detail. I wanted to also just give us a quick visual context when we talk about, where can we impact the overall budget or the overall allocations. It's going to be in the bigger areas, right? It's going to be in where do we invest our capital. The general government's a big piece of it. The police is a big piece of it. Fire ambulance. Now you'll note, and we'll talk about this in a moment when we jump to general government. General government includes also a line item for all the health insurance, dental, all of that is in that overall general government, even though it affects employees in the other areas. We budget it under general government. So that's the big three are really general government, police, and fire, and then capital improvement, and then the rest is smaller pieces. We talk about nonprofits a lot. You can see that's 0.3% of the total budget. It's meaningful, but it's not hugely impactful. All right, so let's talk about general government. The big reasons for increases here I have listed in this bulleted list: 3% raises, and 18.5% increase in dental and health. It's a national election year, which means you'll see that election and registration number is up quite a bit, but that's because this fiscal year we didn't have to run national elections, so we didn't have a primary that we had to staff, and we didn't have a national election that we had to staff, so that causes some increase. We also have wage adjustments in here for supervisors of the checklist because they had not really had a wage adjustment in a very long time, and they do a shocking amount of work with the new regulations that keep getting added to our election every year. For PBTV, we've got a change from to 5 part-time employees. We previously had a full-time employee in PBTV. We're now staffing it purely with part-time. So you see an increase in the PBTV line, but it actually does save us some money as a town because we're not paying benefits anymore for a full-time person. It's all just part-time folks. So a little bit hard to see that as a positive in the pure line item here, but it is effectively a cost savings when we consider benefit costs. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak, and we can go back to any of these slides too. I'm just going to take us through them so that we get the whole kind of overview. And board, please interrupt me at any moment. The next I want to talk about is police. This one is mostly, mostly the 3% raises, and then we will have a warrant article to add PSU policing. The PSU police department has dissolved. There is no more PSU police department. And so we are working on an agreement with Plymouth State to cover the policing for the campus with $340,000 fully reimbursed. So you can see that the overall police budget's up $420, but $340,000 of that is an increase to support the PSU policing, which again has no tax implication to the town. It is just, it has an associated complete offsetting revenue. A couple of small notes here. The schools pay 75% of the resource officer line that's on here. We also have contracted towns that use our police dispatch, and approximately 50% of the dispatch cost is covered by contracted towns. And the third note is that parking is fully offset by fees. So we take in more than the $81,000 that's here in parking fees, and we offset that budget using capital reserve funding, and each year we place money in the parking capital reserve fund that exceeds that amount based on the fees we take in, so that we can pay that in future years, as well as save money for things like parking meter replacements, a vehicle for parking enforcement, those kinds of things. So we're taking that money in, we're saving money in order to address that long term, and so the parking line technically has no impact to taxes because it's all offset by the fees that they take in and more. We'll jump into fire and ambulance. So fire and ambulance, we've got, again, 3% raises. We've got the new union contract and the costs associated with that. Part of the new union contract includes significant wage adjustments over the past few years. The base pay for the skills we have on our fire and ambulance crew has increased significantly nationwide, but certainly in the state and in our comparator communities. So in order to not have all of our fire and ambulance folks looking for jobs in surrounding communities, we have done a work in that union contract to bring their wages into line with what's appropriate for 2026. There's also a change to long-term disability that has some cost there. The biggest cost on this list, though, is the SAFER grant. Actually, Chief, can I call on you to speak briefly to the SAFER grant before I proceed?
So SAFER grant is the staffing. Sorry, my file's upside down, so it's throwing me off. Can everyone hear me? All right. So it's the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response Grant. It's done by FEMA. It's been out for about a decade now. Plymouth Fire has applied for it for the last 5 years, 6 years maybe, and we've been unsuccessful. It's very competitive. Basically what this grant does is give communities the resources they need to adequately meet the NFPA requirements and what the community needs. In our case, it's always been for personnel. We've asked for 4 personnel for 5 years now to bring us up to what we need to just simply do the job. We know it's too expensive on the community, and that's what this grant was for. Finally, after all these years, we finally obtained it. Now, for the total value of it is $787,000, $944. But essentially, for the first 2 years, we're getting 4 firefighters for the price of 1 for 2 years in a row. Third year, we're getting 2.5 firefighters for the price of 2.5. We're getting 4 firefighters for the price of 2.5. And then the fourth year, the total tax application is on us to continue on. What this will do for us is to bring us 4 firefighters right up on shift. So we'll have 4 shifts of 4 firefighters. What that allows us to do is run 2 ambulances simultaneously, an engine and an ambulance, or God forbid we have to go to a fire. We actually have enough people to perfect the rescue and actually do our job. According to our numbers statewide, we should have had 4 firefighters on shift almost 20 years ago, but we just never could afford it. And this grant is allowing us to be able to invest to bring our personnel up to that. The other thing to keep in mind is we also run a regional ambulance service. We don't just service the town of Plymouth, we service all the communities around us, and I mean all of them, all the way out to Wentworth at the moment, because departments have collapsed, EMS systems have collapsed. And unfortunately, the way the state is, we're the closest agency that can take this load, so it's dropped on us. Luckily, we're able to negotiate EMS contracts to get some of that money back. Scott Weed and I and previous Chief Morrison were actually able to redefine our contracts to be able to obtain money back to the town of Plymouth from these communities as a user service, so our taxpayers don't lose money anymore. We don't make money, but we certainly don't lose it. It's revenues. So with that, that's what this grant is. It's allowing us to really just provide our service, give our taxpayers the best possible service that they deserve in the event, God forbid, they go to use an emergency. Our emergency calls are up. They're up to a tremendous level that we've never seen. We're approaching 2,000 calls a year. And it's a team sport. It's not just like I hop in a fire truck, go put out your fire, or handle your medical call. It takes 2 firemen / EMTs to do the job on an ambulance call. God forbid it's a bad call like a cardiac arrest or car accident. It takes several. The problem is there's no other firemen around. It's just Plymouth that's here. So we need to staff up to meet this need. And that's what this grant was designed for. Like I said, we got it, but what we're doing is we're bringing it to the community at town meeting to formally accept it. We have accepted it at the government level, but we need it because there's a cost associated. We're bringing it to you folks. Questions? Did I answer that too much?
Nope, you nailed it. Thank you, Chief.
All right.
And I will echo the point that the Chief made with the kind of note on the bottom of the slide that ambulance revenue from our contracted communities in the surrounding area is approximately $850,000. That's estimated because it can vary based on the volume of calls that happen in those towns. And as Chief said, we bill for the service to the town for what we offer. And we currently provide ambulance services to 7 surrounding towns in addition to Plymouth. So 8 towns total with Plymouth included there on ambulance. Okay, highway, again, we've got some raises. One of the additions here is a town mechanic position, which is in use by all of our departments. The town mechanic allows us to keep our equipment on the road and do basic maintenance on all of our fleet of vehicles with an expert in-house where it is that person's priority. That mechanic also, provides highway services as well, drives the plow truck in a storm, these kinds of things too. So it's not just a mechanic that sits there waiting for work on a car. He's doing highway stuff as well. we think that long-term, this is going to be a huge savings for the town as we are able to address many maintenance issues that in some cases we might have had to send a truck away and have it, out of commission for a period of time while something got fixed. And our mechanic that we have on staff, he is extraordinarily talented. He's able to do pretty much everything, some stuff that we even struggle to find folks to do for us on some of our vehicles, he's able to do. So we believe that's a huge advantage. There's a cost of it right now up front, but we are seeing that savings, and we intend that to save significant money for us going forward.
And just to add to that, what we're doing is actually any repairs that are being done on vehicles, we're actually sending them out and getting quotes on those so we can show what the savings is between what the quote is and whatnot. In one example, we received a quote for over $5,000 for work on a six-wheel dump truck. And our mechanic did the work for half the cost with a total savings of $2,143. So we're building data points on how much we're saving with regards to repairs that have to be done. And as Zach said, we'll have a better idea next year of what the actual savings are after a full year of this program in place. Not only does it create a savings for us, but it gets our apparatus, our vehicles back on the road quicker, without having to schedule them at a dealership or at a local automotive garage. And the mechanic is qualified, has all of the tools to do all of the diagnostics and work that has to be done. So I do believe after a year of this program, we will see a significant savings in what our vehicle maintenance is.
Thank you, Scott. And the last item here is an increase to sidewalks and road maintenance. This added about $60,000 in gross appropriations here. We are offsetting that by about $40,000 from the capital reserve fund. So the tax impact on that increased maintenance on sidewalks and roads is not as substantial as it looks on paper here.
I think one thing to note with regards to when we're looking at the sidewalks, the road maintenance, any of the infrastructure projects with roads, streets, and sidewalks, is a year and a half ago, we had a full evaluation done of all the town roads by an engineer, a local engineer that we use as a consultant. And we do follow that roadmap on repairing the roads, top coating the roads, working on the sidewalks. So it's not just pulling something out of the air that we want to repair Emerson Street or Parker Street or any of the sidewalks. We actually have a roadmap based on the engineer's evaluations of what roads we should be addressing in a priority status, from full road construction to top coat and sealing to crack sealing to sidewalks. So we do use that evaluation study to take care of the road, streets, and sidewalks in town.
And it's a mix. So in some cases, we're doing maintenance work that helps us to not have to do very expensive full reconstructions of roads. But then there are some roads that we have to do the full reconstruction on that are more expensive. And so those are planned in the capital reserve. But overall, as Scott said, we have a plan for all of that with prioritization, which both the highway department can use, but also the capital improvement planning committee can use when prioritizing which work to fund for the coming years. Okay, next up, recycling and sanitation. In this case, we've got, again, 3% raises. We converted one position from part-time to full-time to try to keep the recycling center fully staffed at all times. But honestly, the biggest increase in here is that our solid waste costs have gone up. Anybody wants to ask Jim about that, when you stop by the transfer station, he'll tell you pretty much across the board, everything that we're taking out of that facility is costing us a lot more now than it was costing us previously. So significant costs in terms of waste removal. On to Parks and Recreation, again, 3% raises. There's also, the Parks Department added a summer part-time position in this mix. And it's important to note that the school currently pays 72% of the parks budget because of the shared relationship with, the fields and some of those sorts of things that we're able to share between the two areas. So you see that money appropriated here, but then we have revenue to offset. And if you were at the budget hearing that's occurring tonight for the school, you would see their costs towards us, both at the elementary and the high school. Library is next up. This is, again, 3% raises. We have some building maintenance we're doing this year. We'll talk about some of that in capital, but there's also some that's happening just as smaller non-capital maintenance projects. Fairly small increase overall, but that's what it is. It's raises and building maintenance. We've deferred a lot of maintenance on the library in recent years, and we need to get caught back up. Always the most fun topic, nonprofits. So these are some nonprofit organizations that we give some money to. We have a nonprofit committee as well that makes the recommendations for this budget line item of what organizations we fund. I don't know if Mike's here or not. Mike, you can certainly speak to it later, but generally, and yell at me if I'm wrong, we've been prioritizing care and services for elderly, for youth, and for sort of domestic violence, mental health kinds of work. In some of these cases, the amount of money we pay to somewhere like Lakes Region Mental Health has a huge savings offset to what we would spend on welfare or policing or some of these other areas. So, you might wonder, why are we giving money to one of these organizations? And generally it's because we think that the dollars we're spending there, we're getting more than that many dollars in services to the community back that we don't have to spend somewhere else. So generally that's what we've done and how we've chosen these particular allocations. You'll notice that there's no large organizations here anymore. The Red Cross is no longer on this list. They have a solid donation pipeline. They know how to fund themselves. They don't need our taxpayer funding to exist. So today, those are the 8 that are in this budget.
I don't know if it's time to speak on any of this, or if you're going to go back through it, but I have been talking with Kathy Benwood, who would normally speak, but you got me instead.
Yeah, I'll hold you to. I'll take public comments. We can go back to any of these slides. We can discuss any of these.
Go back to that.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely when that's time, you can approach the mic. And if we want to go back to the slide, we can. If you just want to speak, that's fine too. That's fine. That's fine. You can always go back to YouTube and give it the old zoom in.
Grace did not hear.
Oh
the
yeah,
question.
Grace. We had an audience member say, "Hey, can I speak to that nonprofit slide and some of that? I have some ideas about that, and I deferred them to when I start taking public comment, but noted otherwise." The last group is sort of I've grouped a bunch of things in here that are kind of all over the place. These are all very small budget line items. Emergency management, for example, or the airport, for example. Overall, this is the one area where when you put it all together, it's a significant net decrease. Anyway, we can talk about these if you want, but overall, this miscellaneous category is relatively small in the scheme of things. Although I do know we debated the bathroom in the airport at length at town meeting last year. So if we want to debate that, things like that again, we certainly can. You'll note that the airport is not requesting any sort of increase this year, and their bathroom is much more lovely. Okay, capital improvement. So we'll jump into this next category. Again, we have a capital improvement plan. So everything that's going to be outlined here comes from that effort. And the biggest thing that's in this category is going to be the warrant article for a land purchase for a public safety building. That's going to be the largest piece of this overall. We'll get into that when we get to that category. First up in those categories is debt service. So these are These are loans that we've taken out over the, past, in one case, 17 years. And they're at various stages of completion. For clarity, I added the, what payment number we're on out of how many payments, so that would start to bring a little bit of clarity to where we are at on some of these. And of course, the Capital Improvement Planning Committee is looking at that too, as one debt payment drops off, are there other very large projects that we've been deferring that can pick up? The two biggest notes on this one, because most of these payments are they are the payment. This is the last year of the 2016-2017 Capital Improvement Plan bond, and it's a half payment this year, so that was previously 202 something in previous years. This is the last payment. It's a half payment, so that's down, and that line item will come off the list in the future. And actually, I didn't call it out, but the solar array says 3 of 10, and we will have that loan paid off far sooner than 10 years because we are taking, well, for example, the money you heard us accept this evening will go directly to that loan. Effectively, that $200,000 takes 2.5 years off that loan. We also take all of the income that comes from the solar array and we put it towards that loan as well. So we're every year really drastically cutting that loan. I would guess that we will pay that off probably in half to 60% of the time that we originally planned there. And of course, early payments also help us on interest. And then the last one that's here is the public safety complex land purchase. This is, again, going to be a proposed warrant article. It will be separate. And we've taken sort of a ballpark guess on what that loan would look like. And we haven't really determined our best bet in terms of how many years to pay it off, what the interest rate we'll be able to get. So we're taking a pretty conservative guess at this $280,000. And if we pay it off, I think that's about a 6-year payoff on that loan, probably based on current rates, but it could be shorter, it could be longer, but it really depends on some negotiations that we're able to do, and potentially deferred payments and some of those sorts of things as well. So we're having conversations with banks about that piece. The next category is these are capital land and improvements. So this is like buildings, roads, these sorts of things. There's a few things to just specifically call out here. Again, you see the bond for the land show up, right? This is where some of these things get counted in multiple different lines, right? We've got the payment for the bond, but we also have the full bond represented here, which we would take the money, pay the money. This piece wouldn't have a tax impact. It would be the payment that would have a tax impact. The other thing is we completed an energy audit on Town Hall, and we've got a quote, which before we go too far, I'm going to raise a topic on that. But we're going to have energy audit improvements. If we do those improvements, the estimation is we're going to save about 25% of our annual energy costs for this building. Annual energy costs are about $20,000 annually, so we're talking about a $5,000 a year savings, sort of forevermore on those. The two streets that we're talking about are this year, big major construction is Emerson and Parker. These are, I think they're half payments on both those two streets, just based on timing and things. And then the last one that I wanted to call out is the Riverside Cemetery fence, which we will pay for roughly a quarter of that with money out of the Perpetual Care Capital Reserve Fund. So it's, again, the tax impact isn't the full $36,000. It's less than that. Okay, machinery. So this is when we get into fire trucks, police cruisers, highway vehicles, these sorts of things. Many of these are items that have been approved in prior years, and we're making lease payments on things. The first one that I want to call out on this list is Fire Engine 3. Fire Engine 3 is in year 4 of its 5-year payment, but we are proposing to pay off that lease this year, so both years 4 and 5 in this budget. We have a fire truck that was approved last year, but we still haven't taken delivery on, so we have not made that first payment yet. We have 2 ambulances, one that was approved in 2024 and a second that was approved in 2025. That's Ambulance 1 and Ambulance 2 that are in our firehouse. We have not taken delivery of either of those. That's how long the purchase process on some of this equipment can be. So we have the first payment on both of those because, again, we still have not taken delivery on those 2 ambulances. We've got, I'll also call out the Highway 6-wheeler with plow package, the one that doesn't have numbers on the payments. That's new in this budget, and it comes with a diesel truck grant that we will hopefully be awarded and accepting, which offsets $251,000 of that $326,000 cost. So if we're able to get that approved by the town and accept that grant, the actual, again, tax impact is going to be much lower than the $326 because we'll have that grant money to offset. Those are the big ones I wanted to call out there. Let's pop forward to capital buildings. Over the past couple of years, we've been putting $25,000 a year in a budget to do facility assessment on both the fire and police facilities. We've completed that project, right? We're now coming with a recommendation on a land purchase, so we don't need to spend money on those studies this year. We're good in terms of the studies, so this one drops to 0. Last and probably the least interesting, to be honest, is the transfer to capital reserve funds. This is money that we're putting in savings for future things. The biggest line item on this is the ladder truck capital reserve fund, and we take $75,000 each year from what Plymouth State pays us in their life safety service agreement, and we put that in this fund. Ladder trucks are extraordinarily expensive to replace, so we're trying to save some money. We're trying to take that money from PSU to save that for that future replacement. Okay, that is the whirlwind tour, fast through the budget, explanation of everything that's here. We're back to the summary by area, and now is a good time to take any public comments. Although, before the public comments, I want to go back to my own comment here, which is Town Hall energy audit improvements. And Scott, we have good news on that.
Regards to the energy audit, a lot of thanks to the Energy Commission, specifically Phil, Grace, and Brian, is that we had an energy audit completed on this building, mostly funded by New Hampshire Electric Co-op. And the cost, we had budgeted $100,000 for the wrapping of the building, and it's come back at just about $69,000. But the good news is between the Energy Commission and their due diligence, they've received about a $43,000 grant to offset that $69,000. So we're going to be able to reduce that cost by using that grant to fulfill the energy audit recommendations on this building.
So because of gross appropriations, we still need to allocate the full 69 or probably a little bit more to make sure anything that comes up during that project, we have the money to do it. So I would suggest that we immediately update the budget to drop that from 100 to 75.
I would second that.
With a $43,000 grant offset as a revenue,
Shows
which
revenue
will
later.
be great. Yeah.
And yeah, we're looking at a very short payback period of, if we're saving, $5,000 a year on a net payment of, $30,000, it's a 6-year payback. I think that's a very good investment.
Yeah.
On behalf
At
of the
100,000,
town.
it was a little bit questionable, to be honest. 20-year payback felt like a long time to get our money back on energy improvements, but dropping it to 6 years feels really like great work that committee was able to do, and so I'm really happy about that. Okay, so with that one late ad, public comments. Let's let's take the comments. We can skip around, go back to anywhere or not. And yeah, please approach the mic for procedure purposes. Approach the mic, state your name, who you are, what you're
Can I make
representing.
one comment before we get into public comments?
Please.
So keep in mind, this is the budgeting process, and this is simply the amount of money we propose to carry in the budget for these expenditures. And since we've had a town manager for the past few years, keep in mind, any of these expenditures get reviewed, and you know, the prices generally get better. We have, you know, because we have the opportunity, we have this in a budget, it gives us the opportunity to go out to bid and find actual real pricing on these items, and our town manager has been very responsible in doing that. So the budget is kind of an upper limit on what we think we'll need to spend here, and any savings gets pushed into the next year to offset additional need for revenue at that point. So,
Yes. Thanks, Phil.
thank you.
I'm Annie Schneider. I live up on Old Hebron Road. And Kathy Bentwood and I, probably a lot of you know who Kathy is, doesn't matter, Highland Street. She would have been here to speak at the last time, but it got transferred today, and you'd have been happier to have her talk. So what we're talking about, we know that this town, you know, we do suffer from high taxes in this town as property owners. And the non-taxable properties, tax-exempt properties are at an incredible rate in this town. So it's a real concern, and it's very, very apparent because we see it every single day, everywhere in town. So we're all a little ultra sensitive. I do want to thank the people like Mike and I think Mark who took the step to do a little bit more insight research and had the some of these tax-exempt companies submit their income, submit their statements, submit their financials. That made a big difference because then we could make better decisions. So that was a good thing. What we've talked about, Kathy is well-versed in tax-exempt businesses. 20 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, it was a different industry. It is an industry now. You can major in it in college. They say 10% of people in this country work in the nonprofit industries. Some of my very best friends do that for their whole career. So it is a business, and it needs to be treated as such. I like to hear what you said, where some of these bigger places, they got their own fundraising, they know how to do it. That's their job nowadays. So at town meeting last year, we had a couple really lovely, heartfelt people step up and wanted to actually increase our donations to some of these in-town tax-exempt businesses. I kind of kicked myself that I didn't step up. We won't talk about that anymore. But there's a couple things about it. First of all, that at this stage of the game, it is their business to fundraise, to find grants. That's their job. And so they need to do that. They need to support themselves. I know all of these industries vary. So, you know, what I'm saying doesn't necessarily fit every single situation. But that is their business. It's no longer volunteers and bake sales and car washes. It's not how it works anymore. So they need to be able to step up to the plate. So I would actually, Kathy and I would like to, we met with Scott. You guys are managing things on a pretty like a pretty good level. It's quite interesting. I don't know the ins and outs of it. You guys do. But I do not like to have anything that I want to do, any philanthropy, anywhere I want to donate money, to be dictated to me. I'd like to make my own choices in that. You know, I have my own ideas and I donate all the time. I prefer that is not a line item in the budget. I prefer that the town doesn't take what I already have to pay and also allocate more money out of my tax responsibility to tax-exempt businesses. So I would actually like to have that line, unless you have a very good way of managing it, and it sounds like you have some ideas that I don't know about, but I'd like to have that line taken right out of the budget. So you can ask me questions. I don't know if I can answer them, but. That's all I can say. I'm trying to be succinct. Do I need to say anything else?
Your succinctness is appreciated. So what you're proposing is a complete removal of the $62,000 that we currently pay as a town to nonprofit, or propose to pay to nonprofits for.
That would be my first choice. But, as you mentioned, how some of your money is used and actually saves the town money by using it appropriately, that might be a better way of doing it. I can't answer that. I don't know the intimate details of it. But I do not like to have how I donate, like I give to GoFundMe things, people's house burned down, their dog needs surgery. Like I donate to stuff like that all the time. I would prefer that is my choice. I would prefer that people who are here, who are tax exempt businesses, find their way to their own funding without adding it to my personal tax burden without my choice. So yes, that's my suggestion.
Thank you, Annie.
Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Mike or Mike, would either of you like to speak at all on nonprofit? You don't have to. I just figure I'd give you the floor if you cared to speak to that at all. I promise no one will throw a shoe at you.
No, that's okay. Annie, I like your point. I completely agree with you. I really do.
Good.
Well, I mean, we've looked at, I've been doing this now for I don't know how many years, and Mark and I have been doing it probably the last 4 or 5 years. And the things that we were noticing is we weren't always getting all the information. We also were looking at some of these places that were putting in brand new parking lots with curb granite, et cetera, et cetera. And we took a hard look at what they're getting as far as a break on taxes. And when you look at one place is getting over $14,000 in a break in taxes. Another one's getting $41,000 a break in taxes. And it kind of struck me on a personal note that we're already giving them a lot, So Mark and I have whittled things down to probably more than half of what it used to be. And we do want to be sensitive to the elderly and the kids, and that's generally where we look to support. But you're right. I mean, these bigger companies have, they have people that go out and they raise money and they raise funds, and that has come into play with some of our decisions because we know there are certain people out there in some of these organizations asking for money that are really good at getting it from the government and different places as well. So I like what you have to say. I've been coming more and more to that feeling myself personally. And as much as these things help make Plymouth what they are, we're just inundated now with nonprofits, and it's really doing a number on the town and the tax rate. So I guess that's really all I wanted to say, but I don't think this is a bad idea. And one less committee for me to be on. But no, I think it should be heard at this point in time, and I think the time has come around. It's not like it was 5 or 10 years ago. The last year or so has really exploded. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing all up and down Main Street where there are places that, and thank God that Scott's able to conduct some pilot programs of payment in lieu of taxes to help with that, because legally nonprofits don't have to pay those taxes. So.
Mike, I know you're just one person on the nonprofit committee, so I won't ask you to speak for the whole committee, but do you stand by the recommendation that we're adopting here, or would you suggest that we take a look at this and adjust this number before the next hearing?
I would say let's take a look at it, because there may be certain entities that might need a little more support, but I don't want to rush to judgment, so to speak. I like what I heard. I've been coming to that conclusion myself, and I'd like to take a look at it, but certainly if not completely getting rid of it, at least whittle it down to the point where eventually we get to that point. That's another thing too, is that these different entities have kind of counted on these things over the year, and to stop something right now when plans have been made, I don't know, but
they might need to step up.
I agree. Well, I'll speak for myself in terms of the skate park in Plymouth.
Of course you will.
We raised over $400,000. It didn't cost the town one penny. And we made a decision in the very beginning that we would not ask the town for any money, because I just knew there were too many good people in town. There were too many options where you could go out and get the dough to do that. So it can be done. And it's just a matter of getting yourself out there and think a little bit about how you can generate events and whatnot to do that. Some already do a great job with that, but yeah, I think it really relies on the companies that are, especially you start looking at what some of the CEOs are making and what some of the employees are making, and when you see a budget that 70% of it goes to the management of it, I just question that. So I think we should have discussions about it, but I think there should be strong discussions in terms of what we want to do. But I don't want to put that all on myself. I'll be running around with a target on my back and it won't be
Can I
good.
say one more thing, please?
Yeah, only if you come to the mic, because we got to make sure we capture it.
All right.
Can I go?
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Mike. So this is honestly, you'd have been better off with Kathy. She's just more organized. And she is a tax exempt expert. Like, she's been doing it her whole life. So there's a couple things. She personally and her husband, Dr. John Bentwood, offered their services to help a couple of places, a couple of tax exempt businesses here in town, offered their services to help them fundraise. And they never were taken up on it. I personally think that's not okay. There are 1,800 funders in New England that will help a New Hampshire not-for-profit. So I really think, yeah, we got this little soft thing, but, and I'm not, I do donate money to all kinds of things. We know non-profit does not mean non-money. We know that, quoting a friend. But there are all kinds of resources. And when you do look at, we have big entities that are tax exempt. We have the college, we have the hospital, we have Mid-State Health. Okay, so those are some of the big ones. Then we got a slew of smaller ones. One of the things I will say for the integrity of Kathy Bentwood, when she was running these things and starting them, she would never take a property off the tax rolls, not once. She made sure that when she was starting a new entity, like down at the Veterans Place where Ladders is now, that was not taken off the tax rolls. That was already not on the tax rolls. That was her integrity to do that, to protect the town. So I think, that's just something just to mention, because this whole tax exempt and pilot program, yeah, that's all lovely, but it's a problem for the small number of property owners in this town. So Kathy Bentwood would happily, and we would also like to perhaps in the budget book, we could list all of the places that they could go to as resources. We could also list all of the tax exempt businesses in town. So if you personally would like to donate to that particular one, you could step up and do that. You could make your choice rather than have the budget committee make the choice for you. So, sorry, I'll stop there.
Thanks, Annie.
Is that good? Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is William Bond. I live on Old Hebron Road. I'm sure a lot of you recognize me from previous town meetings and budget meetings. I would put my qualifications as one of the foremost experts in town on paying taxes, actually. And I actually want to take a step back because I think the budget committee has obviously done a lot of work in figuring out the money that we have, the needs that we have as a town. But if we look at the big picture, it's not really making monetary sense as someone who owns property in town compared to what we in town see. If we take a step back and look at the census for 2010, there were approximately 6,900 people who lived in Plymouth. As of 2020, it was around 6,600. The estimates from census.gov for 2024 is still around 6,600. We seem to be in a mindset, however, where we're talking about growing the biggest pieces of the pie of our budget each year. If we looked, it was police, it was fire, it was general expenses. We're focusing on, okay, this is what we have now, this is what we need to do to maintain it, this is what we need to do to get better at all these things. But the problem is our actual tax burden has increased a crazy amount. So I moved to town in 2017. Based on the estimates here, in 2017, 2017, perhaps it was 2018, I think I paid around $22,000 a year in property taxes. Based on the estimates here, next year, I probably owe around $40,000 in property taxes. I looked at the census information. That's about the median income for a male in Grafton County, just to pay for my property taxes. This is completely unsustainable. The idea that we would consider increasing our taxes again, another like 20%, is just, I mean, it's like we're in this growth mindset of where we just need to like, oh, we got to make things better. We got to do things more. We actually don't have more resources to make things better with. From what I understand, we have organizations that don't have to pay taxes that are purchasing properties in town and taking them off the tax rolls so that we can't actually collect taxes from them. And then at the same time, the cost of everything, a great police and fire, is going up. So we're coming in from one side where we're losing our income, and then the other side, our expenses are going up. We've gone to the state. We can't actually make any of these nonprofits pay these pilot programs. But yet here we are proposing, let's add more police to cover PSU. We're talking about hiring more firefighters. It's great that we got a grant, but from my calculations, in 4 years, we're paying for 4 more firefighters. I looked at the capital improvement plan. We've got, in a couple years from now, we're talking about our capital costs going up $500,000, which is, I think, around 20% of what it is now. So we've got all these, like the next few years, we have all these plans to spend a ton more money. If we keep on doing this, like I'm anticipating my taxes broaching $45,000 over the next few years. That's just insane. And I think we need to change from a growth mindset of like, we need to like do all these things, buy all these things, improve all these things, to like, what can we go without? I mean, with budgeting, you have a certain amount of income as a family, and then when you can't purchase something, you just don't buy it, right? Or you go use your credit card and then it turns out badly in the end, right? So, I mean, taking a step back from all the little details, it's like we're thinking that we're going to have all this growth. We haven't grown as a town in terms of our taxable land or our number of residents in at least 15 years. I didn't look back to 2000. But then we're talking about adding all these other expenses. It's getting more expensive to pay everybody to work in all of these, essential roles like police and fire. So we can't do all the things better and keep on growing as a town. We have to actually think and look, like, do we have any anticipation that in 5 years, all of a sudden, we're going to have all these more taxable things, or we're going to pass laws? We probably shouldn't be making commitments into financial things 5 years out that, like, we can't pay now, right? We should actually be looking for, like, 5 years out, we need to be decreasing it. Otherwise, it's just going to continue because of inflation, because of the cost of goods, because of the cost of labor. Like, we're going to be in an even worse spot, right? And I think what we probably see is that people are like, I can't afford this, I need to sell because I can't afford the property taxes. And then if you're in a good spot in town, what do you know? A nonprofit's like, that looks great. And who's going to pay the most of nonprofit? Because they don't actually have to pay the property taxes. Anybody who has to pay property taxes factors that into their budget and is like, hey, my mortgage is going to be this much, but my property taxes are going to be more than my mortgage is. And so I can't actually pay you that much. And then that's going to depress the value of homes. And I mean, you're also saying people have to basically move to afford to live. So I think as a whole, we as a town need to be thinking about how we can decrease and figure out where we can just decide this is good and we would like to do this, but until we have some sort of ability to increase revenues, can we keep on writing these checks? I don't think we can. I mean, I'm blessed in a situation where I can actually pay my taxes. I'm not in arrears on those. I know there's plenty of people on fixed budgets who cannot handle the increases. So I think as a town, we just have to think about, like, I mean, if we're going to have all these nonprofits and we're going to be the hub, how can we do less? How can we charge more? Does it make sense to take on more firefighters? I mean, it might make sense because we're the central hub, but like, do we have to charge more to all the other towns for all these things? As soon as we take on more police and firefighters, we need more space for them. We have more retirement accounts. We need to have more training. We have more healthcare, which keeps going up. We have all these things. So if we keep growing, well, history shows that everything is just going to keep growing. So my challenge is we actually need to see a proposal for like what would actually be a more fiscally conservative budget for the town, as opposed to let's keep on like making the town better, but along the way spending more money. So.
Thank you. The one thing I'm just going to quickly address is, while I agree with your point on our tax base not growing quickly and in some cases being gobbled up by nonprofit, non-taxable entities, we have grown our revenues as a town. So things like we have been far more effective at taking in grant money, which we weren't doing 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So the amount of grant money that we're taking in is significantly increased. The other piece is, leaning into our identity as a hub town. You see the ambulance and fire, where now we're serving 7 surrounding towns, and those 7 surrounding towns are paying for the services that they're receiving. So we have found some creative way, and I'm not saying it's necessarily enough, right? But I do want to challenge the idea that we haven't grown our revenues, because we have grown our revenues, we haven't grown our taxable revenues entirely. Things like Market Basket grew our taxable revenues. We have had some big projects like that in the 10-year window that you're talking about, but it's not entirely property tax, because we've had to look and get more creative about some of these ideas of how we can offer more services as a hub community, but bill the surrounding communities or bill people for those services that we're offering, so that the taxpayers of Plymouth don't have to eat those expenses.
But it seems like so far that hasn't been working. Otherwise, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know how many of you have seen your taxes go down over the past 8 years, or even like follow inflation. Like if my taxes followed the inflation rate, I have not made any improvements to my home whatsoever. My taxable rate was set at the amount that I paid for my home in 2017, and yet somehow my taxes are double. And so it might be that we've gotten better at bringing in revenue, but like some of those grants, like the grants all expire in some regards. Yes. Like the firefighter is great that we get like $700,000, but then we're also on the hook for firefighters in a few years, right? And then, right, like, do we want to write that check now, knowing that, the debt collector is going to be coming in 4 years and saying you owe everything?
I'm much more in support of the grant work we've done, like the diesel truck grant that's on here, where we know we have to replace our plow trucks or we can't plow our roads.
Yeah.
And that doesn't increase the costs to the town because we're replacing a truck.
Right. Yeah.
Solar array project.
Solar array project
Great
where
example.
where we do have a short-term cost to that, but the long-term is we start to generate a new revenue probably within the next few years to be positive. So, yes.
Yeah, but like
I agree.
The idea of bringing on more police for PSU, if PSU got rid of their police, are we factoring in the new, like, we have more, this growth mindset of like more, and like you could say that, oh, this individual line item is covered here, but it's like, oh, now we need parking for 15 cruisers instead of 13. Our parking lot's too tight. Do we need to like pave a new area? Like it all just keeps growing and growing and growing, and it's like having a lot of stuff in your house. Eventually you get to the point where you're like, I just have to like purge this because there's just too much stuff and I can't maintain it all, because everything you buy, everything you take on is something that costs to maintain. And it seems like we just keep on, like, it seems like that we're talking about more ideas of more things that we as a town have to maintain, yet our taxes have been continuing to increase relative to inflation.
I mean, if you look specifically, Will, and I understand your feeling and your point. I mean, I pay taxes here too. I get it. But specifically with the Plymouth State University, we don't have a say in that. That is in the town of Plymouth, and under jurisdiction, the Plymouth Police Department has to cover that without any additional resources. Now, we don't have a choice. We have to answer criminal-related calls on that campus. We're not doing all the incidental things of parking and rides and things like that. They're keeping their safety services for that, but we are mandated by statute to answer those criminal complaints on that campus.
All right,
We
and so
can't
what are
do-
we gonna cut? What are we gonna
can't
cut
do
to
it,
offset it?
But wait a minute, we can't do it with the current staffing that we have, knowing that they had 5 officers at one time that were patrolling that campus. We, through Nate and Rod, are saying we can do it with 2.5, but we are recouping 100% of the associated labor cost with
There you
that.
just said it, labor costs. I'm concerned about all the capital costs that are gonna come. Oh, we have more employees, and then there's all of those little things that kind of hide in
That's
the
labor
corners.
cost. That's labor cost,
So their
okay?
vehicles that they have to drive are labor costs?
They've given us 2 vehicles.
Are they gonna replace them when they are no good in 5 years, and then we have
It-
another warrant item? Are they gonna,
That's
are
when
they
we-
gonna help pay for the new, bigger safety complex?
When we renew the agreement, those are negotiation standpoints that we'll have to work through.
And how much leverage do we have? I think you just said none, because we are required to.
No,
fulfill
we have
this.
leverage in negotiation and negotiating what the
So if
costs
we,
are with that.
if we have leverage in negotiating with PSU, why do I pay almost 1/10 as much as the whole university in my property taxes as they pay in their pilot program? Because I'm
They're
one,
tax exempt.
right, because we have no leverage. That's
There
my
is
point. We have
nothing-
no leverage.
there
So
is no
we have to
leverage
spend
that-
less money. We just have
That's
to
right.
spend less money.
There's no leverage that the town has to
Right.
collect any funds from that university.
Exactly.
They could walk away from us and say, it's all on you, deal with it.
Right, so we have to figure out, what are we gonna cut? That's what I'm saying. What are we gonna cut?
Based
We
on
have to cut.
activity,
We don't have to say that. That's the whole question. I mean, that's why we're putting this budget in front of the voters.
Right, I mean, so I guess it's up to the town, and this is where it comes down to the thing. It's like, do we want to keep on seeing our taxes going up, or do we want to figure out where we have to cut stuff?
Well, and so Will, I'll take it back to you and make this a tangible requirement in the same way that I challenged Annie and Mike to say, what's your suggestion? Are you suggesting between now and Thursday that we cut $62,000 out of the nonprofits? Are there specific things that you recommend we stop doing as a town that you can suggest between now and Thursday?
I'd say we as a town probably need to come up with a capital improvement plan that doesn't include like $500,000 of increases over the next couple of years, a fire plan. Like maybe we shouldn't be running EMS for all the surrounding towns, because then we wouldn't need a bigger building for it, right? We wouldn't need as many ambulances. We wouldn't need all these things. Those towns would just have to figure it out. And then-
Even if we stopped serving our surrounding towns with fire service or ambulance service today, we've still outgrown the fire station that we're in.
Right. So, I mean, what I'm
Has nothing to
saying
do with that
is,
particular-
what I'm saying is, I'm not willing to continue to write bigger and bigger checks, and so
No,
I want the. I'd
I
love
hear
to see
you.
a budget that's 20%.
Well, I'm
lower
gonna
than last
interrupt you. I will accept a proposal, right? Like we're in the,
20% across the board cut.
that's
Ever.
not a, I mean, you can give me that proposal, but that's not particularly actionable. So
Well,
if you,
it's not reasonable for me to keep on seeing bigger and bigger tax bills, and I'm saying I want to see
Right.
us
And what I'm-
figure out a way to cut it.
I will interrupt you again. We can, as a board, do work between now and Thursday, adjust this budget related to actual proposals. A 20% cut across the board, it's not actionable. And I'm one person on this board, I can't speak for the rest of them. But if your request to us is to do a 20% cut across the board, we're going to come back on Thursday and present this same budget because it's not an actionable request for us to do that.
Okay.
If there are specific services that you think that we ought to look really closely at, and the clock is ticking because we have statutory dates that we have to hit in order to move this process along, because the process is the process. We have to present a warrant and a budget to the town.
I think we should not propose all the capital improvements that result in almost the entirety of the proposed
So you're
estimated budget increases, because
Okay, let's go. Let me get real specific with you. So our suggestion as a board today is to put forward the request for a land purchase as a separate warrant article. We wish to put that to the town. The town can choose whether or not we're going to buy a piece of land and expand into a public service building. I'm not going to suggest we remove that to the budget. Whether I agree or don't agree with it, I think the right thing to do at this time, we've done the study, we've come to the conclusion that we need it. We're going to put forth that particular proposal. Again, this board can interrupt me. I'm one guy on the board. The rest of these debt payments, we got to make these payments. So there's nothing on this particular slide other than that bottom line item, which I'm saying we're going to propose as a separate warrant
There's
article.
something that came up.
No, I'll move to the next slide. So I'm just, we're in the overall capital, there's four different categories. So I'm just saying, we're not going to do anything to this first category. So the second category, these are capital land and improvements. Are there things on this list that you suggest we do not do as a town?
This seems like the most obvious one.
That's the one I just said that we're going to do because we're going to do it as a separate warrant article.
And there is complete offset.
I mean, I think we could consider converting roads to dirt roads to decrease road construction costs. I mean, like, we're at the point where, like, no. I mean, keep going up, or come up with alternatives. Like,
No,
I'd love to hear some alternatives from people who, like.
We in Budget Committee have discussed converting roads to dirt.
I was just
It's a
going
real
to say,
thing.
I mean, you have the budget committee here, you have Mark Halloran, you have Mike Courier, you have Sue Woods, you have Jessica Mayhew here in the room tonight, and they approved moving this budget forward. So whether their concerns didn't come out during that process, which they should have come out if they had concerns with this budget, but unanimously, this budget was moved forward by the Budget Committee, the CIP Committee, and the Select Board. A group of your peers that are sitting in this room tonight.
I mean, that's fine, but I'm proposing an alternative to the continued sort of like government status quo of continuing to like, let's keep making the thing. I mean, because that is an approach. It is an approach to be like, let's keep on growing the things, making them all better and stuff like that. And we know what the outcome of it is. And the alternative is like, let's do, like, I mean, businesses do this all the time. I mean, sometimes they just go bankrupt and then they stop being entities, which we don't really have an option as a town to do. So it's like.
No, so I'm going to keep moving you towards specifics.
Sure.
Your proposal is to not do any further work to Emerson and Parker Streets.
I think that's a potential option. I mean, yeah. I mean, also there's the.
I don't know if I will take that recommendation under advisement to discuss with the board.
Is there anything else there, Will, that you feel is over the top or
No,
that
not over
we?
the top. I mean, I'm not looking at everything you've said is reasonable. I'm just saying the outcome is not reasonable in terms of the growth compared to the growth of our town as a town and the growth of.
No, I agree. The problem becomes, and we face this in the Budget Committee, we face this in these conversations, we face this at town meeting, is that when push comes to shove, people really struggle to say, I'm willing to do less in this area. I'm willing to not have X in our community. And so that's the part that I keep pushing you back towards, is just if we are going to get serious about doing stuff, we do need to think about, okay, well, what is it?
Can we cut that? 15 grand? I mean,
Will, might I suggest you're clearly well-spoken and passionate. However, Zach's request to have detail is extremely important, supportive arguments. So being that you're so well-spoken, I would strongly advise become part of the Budget Committee, hear the detail, hear the ins and outs, hear the ramifications. Here's the pluses and minuses. Dirt roads, great, understand those impacts and present those. You need to be nonprofits. We can't do anything about it.
Right.
Go to the state level.
So we can't, no. So we can't do anything about the nonprofits. We already started there. So we have both sides squishing in. And so what is in the middle is our budget. So what you're asking for is specifics.
Yep.
And so I'm saying, well, based on what I've heard so far is we have a big amount that we need to cut. So we have to find things that it's like, that sounds nice and is probably well reasoned, but we have to cut something. So what is it gonna be? Well,
So-
I'm probably not gonna cut my police officers' salary increases, and I presume that there's no, I mean, other than on the fire side, it's like, sounds like it's, I don't know if we have contracts with the other towns for all of our ambulance services, like.
We do.
Right, so we can't like squish things there. So like, those are two huge chunks, right? And so the other areas we need to make sure we aren't growing, and I think we should actually consider not growing the police or fire if at all possible, because that is where our biggest like grower in actual like budget expenses seems to be.
Yeah. So I'm just,
So what I
just got to
would,
pop back to police for just 1 second. So the growth in the police is this PSU gross,
fully reimbursed.
which is fully reimbursed. All costs are fully reimbursed.
In this year, there's revenue.
Yeah, actually, Chief, do you want to speak to the PSU? Well, because this is a specific, we can actually dig into this a little bit more. Thank you.
Sure. So part of the negotiated agreement that we have thus far with the university is going to be the fully reimbursed for the 2.5 positions, which are the positional costs. That includes the retirement, the benefits, as well as the expected, if there was an increase next year, for salary raises. Also included in that is the equipment that was transferred, which would be like the firearms, the tasers, the body cameras. There's money set into this agreement for additional body cameras, so if there is an increase, they would cover that increase and do that. We've also worked in, because our room was specifically set up for a number of officers in our patrol room, they're going to fund the cost to bring in cubicles, reorganize, add those additional spaces at the PD for that. So that's also covered by the university, as well as the cruisers.
Uniforms.
And uniforms. So part of this is also the full outfit of all the uniforms, the vest, and all the duty equipment. So all of that is figured into this initial agreement, which would bring us, I think we started with 2 years. So next year we would start again to figure out what is needed now, what's next, what do we have to do to maintain this.
Correct me if I'm wrong, next year they could come back and say, we don't have anything in our budget, we're not going to pay anything, right?
Right, well, that's part of the agreement. I mean, I don't know what they
Two-year
can
agreement,
say. You know?
2-year agreement.
2-year
Yeah,
agreement.
at which,
Two-year agreement. So
at which
it's 2
point-
years.
Two-year agreement.
that would be a very natural moment for us to say, should we reduce our police staff?
And so this is 2.5, is this a part-time?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's 2 full-time positions and then enough for a part-time officer. Chief Lefebvre, who just left the university, is willing to stay on part-time just to help with some of the university-specific details, spring clearing, that sort of stuff.
And what about vehicles? Is
Yep.
this, so I heard we getting the vehicles they had. Does this include maintenance, purchasing new vehicles? Is that all part of the agreement?
So the vehicles that they have won't need to be replaced in the current contract period. So when we renegotiate the contract at the end, we would have to negotiate in the vehicle replacement in the next round of negotiation with them. My belief would be, yes, it would be included in that next agreement. And again, if it's not, well, that's when as a organization, we should get serious about staff reduction because we don't have the money to pay for it.
Have we ever reduced the staff?
We change staffing configurations from time to time.
Have we ever?
So, the question I would then pose, is it Mike or Mark? Will, I was way off, I'm sorry. You brought up, our town size has gone down. We've gone from 6,900 to 6,600. But I would imagine, in that time frame, I would imagine our calls for police services and fire service has still actually gone up. So it's not like just because we have less people, we get less calls. Our calls are actually increase, which causes a problem that we need more, we need those services. And so, coupled with that, in the time frame that you've talked about from 2010 to now, or from 2017 to now, from 2010, inflation has gone up 40%. The buying power of a dollar has gone down 40% since 2010, and has gone down 30% since 2017. And so things are, unfortunately, are more expensive. And trust me, I understand, it's tough on families. I'm one of the families in here with 3 kids that are looking at bills and looking at what we're doing. But unfortunately, with the expenses that we have, despite the town population going down, we're still getting more calls for our essential services. And so, yep, the services haven't gone down. We haven't reduced our police force because the police force has been needed. And so I understand your concern with the budget. We've had a 6-month or 8-month budget process, as the chairman has pointed out, of going through these processes. We as a select board do look at we bring every department in, we talk about, okay, what are the expenses, what are you looking at? I understand your concern. What I would really encourage you to do is take the spreadsheet home and come back on Thursday and say, I think this should be cut here to this extent, this should be cut here to this extent, and giving us actionable items that we can, put to a vote and work with, and not just a blanket, 20% cut, or taking time here, like, oh, let's do this one here. Let's do the homework and come back. As a teacher, I would say do the homework and come back with your report ready to present to the class on Thursday.
And just to add to that, Will, I'm willing to work with you between now and Thursday if you do want to dig into anything or you do want to explore stuff. This is my number one priority, is to get this figured out as well. So if it makes sense for you and me, or you, me, and Scott, or you, me, and the finance manager to meet to discuss some ideas and proposals, I will absolutely make myself available to you to do that.
So has the...
Microphone, please. Make sure people can hear.
I mean, you're asking me to do homework. I started my homework as soon as I walked in the room with this proposed budget this evening. I presented an alternative view on the landscape to the view that has been presented here. And what I'm hearing is you need to look at all these line items and tell us exactly what it is. But I'm not proposing. I said all your line items are great. Just we have this like growth mindset. We need to think of like a reduction mindset, because otherwise, right? Like, and so I'm challenging the select board and the budget to we've 10 years from now, are we going to be having, my estimation is we are not going to be having that many more taxable lots unless we start putting in big subdivisions somewhere. We're probably going to have less because we keep on.
What you're discussing is literally the work that we do as a board all year round.
And the work that the planning department does.
So do we have a 5-year plan that shows how we could do it with less money than we're spending now?
We have planning documents. No. Do we have a plan that says this is how we can do it with less money?
Right, because normally with the
not.
budget, you're like, I have this much money, let me figure out how to allocate it. And what I hear you guys saying is, we have these responsibilities, we're gonna come up with this amount of money to do it. And I'm saying, imagine you had less. What would you, being the ones who spent 6 months looking at that, what would you cut? I would actually turn it around and say, you're the experts. I'm not the expert. I'm only the expert at
what I would tell you is that the first draft budget that comes from the departments is significantly reduced. They come with everything that they would like to do in their department, and we challenge that line item by line item down to what they're spending on office supplies. That's the work of the budget committee. That's the work of the department heads and the finance manager. So that work's happening in terms of the challenging of how can we do this for less? How can we go find a grant to pay for to go pay for an expansion if we really do need it to support the number of calls that we're getting on the department? Or how do we go find money to pay for a new plow truck, because we got to replace the plow trucks we have. We can't have fewer roads. I guess that's a proposal. We could close a road, but I don't think many people would be super support. In fact, I tried to close a road here 4 years ago, and everybody told two. In my 6 years on the board, I've tried to close 2 roads in this town, and I haven't been supported either time. So,
I like one of the roads that you did try to close. So thank you for not being successful.
Yeah, there you go. That's the side effect of that. But,
Sorry, you do have additional comments and questions.
yeah.
as well that are
So
coming.
Will, I deeply appreciate all your comments and your passion on this. I'm going to take a few other voices. If you have other things you'd like to say, don't go too far. I'll give you as much time as you want.
You ready for this?
Yeah, who do we got online?
Grace.
Grace, do you have things to say to us?
Close the thing, the X right there. Nope,
Close
nope,
this
nope,
one?
nope, nope. One down.
Hi, Grace.
Here.
There you go.
Hey, first of all, I just, this is a public meeting, so I really appreciate what all the public has to say. One thing I would just suggest to Jonathan, I think he's filming the process, is to focus in on the speakers. I don't know who's speaking at the time that they're speaking, so I'm a little lost in the process.
Sorry about that. As moderator
No
of
worries.
this discussion, I will try to keep people.
I know it's my bad that I'm having to do this on Zoom.
No, lots of people consume this on YouTube as well, so it is important that I remember to.
Thanks, Jonathan. Okay, so I actually did a little chat, and I guess, so I noticed that the transfer station budget hasn't increased. And, you know, I love what those guys do. I think they're super hardworking, and I don't want to be disparaging to them, but I have noticed, and we've had this conversation before about non-residents coming and using that facility, and that it's difficult maybe to check permits as people come into that facility. Unfortunately, I noticed that there's other folks that I know that come to that station to dispose of their waste, and I'm just wondering, you know, are we taking on more waste than we really should, and is there a good checks and balances on that? So that's one thing I'm wondering about the permitting process. And then, like, one day I was there and this contractor was just throwing all the stuff in the household waste bin, and I feel like there's like a tipping point for contractors for fees and stuff. So I just feel like those are two places where I would personally ask our transfer folks and the town to work on maybe building some revenue. Is A, making sure that folks that are coming in, dumping their waste are actually Plymouth residents, and B, that if there's a tipping fee, that fee be, what's the word I'm looking for, just
Reviewed?
levied on that person or those people. The third thing I just want to say is, like, through the Plymouth Energy Commission, we're talking about how big the food waste piece is nationally for waste disposal, and so we're eventually going to propose something about like a food composting initiative at the transfer station. So that might be a place where we can look at reducing the amount of monies that the recycling center has to expend on their budget. But I do have concern about the increase, kind of for those two reasons, but also there's also maybe a solution with the food waste piece in the future. I'm done.
I can say that I know that the transfer station staff is aware of the likelihood of out-of-towners using the dump. I know that
Recycling center.
Recycling center, thank you. They do have dump stickers, and they're starting. They have the ability to verify that, and I know that there's also discussion about commercial haulers using the transfer station, and we've discussed that as well.
We have, yeah. It's a conversation we've had with Jim continually, and one of the challenges they have, and that we've discussed when he's come in, is with their staffing level. You know, having somebody up front when they need to have somebody, you know, driving the skid steer to move the glass, or running the compactor, or, you know, dealing with the recycle. You know, they can't be everywhere, right? So it's not to say that we shouldn't do it, Grace, because I agree that's an area where I think we can push more savings as a town, but it's not a wave your magic wand solution, unfortunately. But I think we can get some savings there.
I think those are good ideas, Grace, and something that we need to do our due diligence and follow up on.
I'll just say again, I don't mean to disparage what they do there. I can't imagine a harder job in this town. There was a moment where there was a group of us offering to just be like, I forget, like a volunteer group that would stand at the bottom and just say, hey, do you have your permit? Do you need one? You can get one here. Like, just make people aware that they A, need a permit, and B, that we're watching. So we did actually, I think this was 2 years ago, we did offer a little, I don't know, like a citizens group, just to kind of get that ball rolling of folks being aware that they need to be more mindful about where they're going with their waste. So, you know, maybe we try and initiate that again, to take the burden off of the folks at the transfer station that are doing that hard work. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thanks, Grace. All right. Other public comments. Will can't be the only one who challenges us. Yeah, please.
I'd like to make a comment too, Will. Part of that population demographics that you're talking about decreasing is the reduction in the number of college students because they are included in the census. So Plymouth State as a whole has been becoming smaller, and I think that probably makes up for the majority of that decrease of population.
Hi, Mark Halloran. One of the things, as I listened to the argument, it's not unique for Plymouth. It's all over the state of New Hampshire. If you look at media, and it's been the what's going on at the legislature, which has been to continue to pass resolutions and laws and not fund them, particularly at the school level. So there's a real revenue problem. The issue is, as New Hampshire cuts taxes, which everybody, I suppose, thinks is a great idea, the majority of those taxes came back as revenues to cities and towns. And if you look at the history of revenue for the town of Plymouth, say for the past 20 years, I'm sure you'll see the line, just a straight line down, which leads us to what can we do about it. I don't propose to do anything at the legislature, but I think what cities and towns need to do is look at regionalization. We did this back in the 80s and 90s where no one on their own could afford a high school. Ashland had its own high school, wasn't working, costs were skyrocketing with legislation for special education and all of these other things. But I know that Scott has talked to surrounding cities and towns, surrounding towns, and we need to really look at regionalization for police, for fire. We're going to get into all those small town arguments. Well, the station's in Plymouth, and we're not using that truck. We got to get beyond that at the selectman level, select board level. And we need, in terms, if we're going to survive on property taxes, we're heading down the drain right now. We really are. And you've heard all the arguments. I don't need to repeat them. But we need to look at real solutions, and the solutions are in regionalization. The town of Plymouth pays about 25 cents on every dollar that's used at Plymouth Regional High School. That's affordable. And if we look at police costs and fire costs, solid waste costs that continue to skyrocket, we need to really look at that. Now, we have a Pemmy Baker Solid Waste Committee. They should be looking at those sorts of things. That's the sort of thing I think that DES would fund it for, would get a grant into planning a regional solution. Many states use county-wide facilities, and they're broken into different parts of the county. I mean, Grafton County is too big to have one recycling center. But we need to really look at regionalization, or else we're going to all be back here trying to do the same old thing every year. And so I would leave you that. I know Scott's had conversations with some of the surrounding towns. What we're doing with the ambulance is regionalization.
Absolutely.
And as we look at our net costs now, they're reasonable for the town of Plymouth because of the shared expense. So it's regionalization, whether we like it or not. So thank you.
I think, Mark, you bring up a good point, and I know that we internally are having conversations on that, and I'll look specifically at Chief Pierce, is that we have met hours upon hours about how we can create sustainability for the town of Plymouth. And part of that is regionalization, and we are in conversations right now with the town of Holderness on regionalization for fire and EMS services, because alone, it's not sustainable. And with what Chief Pierce has done to the west with contracted towns that we have of Warren, Wentworth, Dorchester, and Rumney, is looking to the state to create a EMS district that would handle those western towns for the rural EMS services in the state of New Hampshire. So I will say we're at very early stages, but we are in those conversations. We met just last week with the town of Holderness, with the administrator and the fire chief. I know their select board is on board with us on how can we create a regional fire EMS service to create sustainability for all. It's going to take time. It's going to take 3 to 5 years to get this up and running because it's something that is brand new to the Northeast corridor. It's done out in the Midwest. It's done on the Southeast coast, but in New Hampshire, any of the New England states, it's not heard of because of the territorial issues that each municipality has. We are going to break that, and we are going to continue to pursue the regionalization as Mark discussed. So I can tell you that's first in the fire service, and then we'll look for law enforcement services as well, because we can't continue to go it alone.
And you think about something like, buying a new fire truck. New fire truck costs $1 million. Town of Rumney doesn't want to have to buy a new fire truck. Doesn't mean they don't need to buy one, but you start to think about that regionalization. If you can buy that, one fire truck that serves 4 communities, now you can defray that $1 million cost into something that's a lot more reasonable.
And how much apparatus does each community need?
Right.
There's definitely cost savings, but it's going to take us time to get there.
And so there's one way to look at this where we say, no, let's really sort of close our borders and let's really focus on Plymouth and let's think about us. But I wouldn't suggest that is a path that gets us savings in the long term. I think as we look at the model we have with our ambulance, where we're recouping as much money as we can while also being able to have, this top-notch service in our community. I really believe that the more we can expand on that model, the more we can create cost savings long term.
If we look at fire and EMS just for the town of Plymouth, that's a $1.2 million endeavor for us to have full-time fire and EMS responding just in the town of Plymouth with 2 ambulances, because we have dual calls many days in the town of Plymouth. So think about the 1.2 million. Then add on the 850,000 that we bring in revenue by contracting with the towns that we have. And how we contract with those towns is we look at the percentage based on an average period of time on how many times we respond to Ashland, Holderness, Bridgewater, Warren, Wentworth, and we bill them appropriately. So we know what the budget is, right? So if this budget went through at $2.2 million for the ambulance, the cost per call is $1,666 a call. We bill them for each call. Before, we were just taking what insurances were paying at 32 to 38% of that $1,600. We were continuously losing money as a town in providing contracted services. Today, we break even with what those different communities utilize for services from the town of Plymouth. And that's because we monitor where the budget is and we bill on a quarterly basis for that service. And it has created a non-deficit for us now because we know what the service costs us to provide, and that's what we're invoicing each one of those communities at this point in time.
All right.
Can I make a comment on our?
Please.
So we're all aware of the burden that we're somewhat of a regional hub. There's not a lot of more developed communities around us. So the burden of having the biggest fire department in the area kind of falls on us. But we also benefit from being a fairly rural community, despite the fact that we're the least rural, the most developed in the area. Our 2018 master plan tallies up the amount of acres in current use, which is basically undeveloped land, and 77% of the acreage in Plymouth is in current use, which means it's taxed at a reduced rate. So of the 23% that's taxed at market rate, you then subtract out all the acreage that's or the property that's held by nonprofits, and yeah, there's a substantial burden that's left for the properties that are taxed at market rate. We're aware of that. it's a tough thing. I think it probably affects Plymouth more disproportionately than almost any other community in the state. That being said, overall, I would say we still have, as a state, we have one of the lowest overall tax burdens of any state in the country. We don't have an income tax. We don't have sales tax. Everything falls on the shoulders of property owners. I don't particularly think it's the best way to allocate ability to pay on taxes, but it's what we're left with. It's what we're stuck with in the state at this point. We do have a responsibility to try to manage costs, and we do. The budget committee's done a lot of work. We've been working on this for months. We've put together a proposal that we can put in front of the voters, and it's really up to the voters to decide what gets approved and what doesn't. I'm reluctant to cut too much out of this budget because every year I've gone to town meeting, I've been amazed at the speed with which everything gets approved. I don't think not everything in this budget has to get approved. And I'm going to challenge voters, show up. I think last year we had roughly 700 people show up to vote on Tuesday on the paper ballots, and maybe 25% of that showed up on Wednesday to vote on the financial questions. If you're not, I remember you from town meeting. You had great points last year. And not everybody has to speak their mind, but vote your conscience. We need better representation at town meeting for the deliberative session where the financial issues are addressed. So please show up, vote, exercise your rights. Thank you.
Agreed.
Comment from Zoom. Bill Bolton, our representative to the legislature, said, "Great point, Mark. Downshifting costs in the towns is, come on. Sorry, my mouse.
You're too far away.
I know.
Downshifting, Bill says, great point, Mark. Downshifting costs to towns is what the legislature is doing.
Thank you.
And
And
Grace
then,
Garvey
agreed.
said, I agree on regionalizing.
The example of, the state has been downshifting costs to towns for quite some time. They used to cover a lot more of town employee retirement costs, and those are now borne 100% by municipalities. There used to be significantly more education aid, which has been pared back. I think we're down to maybe $4,000 per student now. I think when I was on the school board, it was up at 8 or 9. So these are all local impacts that the legislature is reducing the amount of funding available to municipalities, and if you continue to fund things at that level, the cost gets picked up by taxpayers, by local property taxes.
And once again, the town portion is only a portion of your property tax bill.
It is.
There's still the SAU and the state and the county tax portion of it. So.
Yep.
And I will say, I will commend our local representatives that represent us in Concord. I think most of them advocate
Strongly.
to support us as a community. I don't think the downshifting we're seeing is coming from the votes of our local legislators, but there's a statewide trend to, they eliminated the income and dividends tax, which is a major source of revenue for the state, and now the state has to cut further taxes, and cutting the campus police force. While there's no impact now, if they come back in 5 years and say we're not going to support that, then it's a downshift on the town. And I caution, it is a cost increase on the town if they don't agree to do that in the future. But it's a question, there's economy of scale. We can probably do more with 2.5 officers on our PD than they did with our smaller PD and 5 officers. We have a lot of faith in our officers. We can be more efficient because we don't have redundancies. But there are costs. So, thank you to everyone who's spoken up. These thoughts are not alone. We all pay taxes in town. It's expensive for all of us, and we're doing what we can to put forward valid options to continue offering services in town. If voters choose not to support them, we will make do with what voters approve. it may be difficult. We may have to cut things at that point, but if not everything in the budget gets approved, we'll have to have reductions, but we're going to continue to offer what we can to the town.
Agreed.
William Bond here again. So I guess one thing that I'd love to see is, since you're actually the experts on it, I'd love to see a proposal floated to the town members to say, if we were to try to cut 10%, where would you guys choose to cut the 10%? What departments would you decide to say, you know what, out of all of the options, this is what we would choose to? Because right now it's like, oh, go do your homework, come up with a better answer than we have, which, I mean, in 48 hours, I'm not going to come up with a better answer than you have, but I can come and say that this is a real serious problem. And I'd love to see a proposal from the town to say, this is what we think should happen. If you guys want to spend less money, this is where we'd put it, right? I'd love to see that come out. And so that the town, I mean, I feel like honestly, 160 people, 164 votes happened last year at the ballot, I think it was. 164 people were like, oh, well, it was proposed, so yeah, I guess we just have to do it, right? I mean, we could take that as a valid suggestion as to the behavior of the people of the town. Can we also come up with an alternative where we're like, hey, you have option A and you have option B. Option B means you don't get X, Y, Z, and all this other stuff kind of happens, right? I think most people would say, well, fire and police, and obviously the school is something we don't control in this sort of budgetary process. Yeah. Right. What is a proposal for a leaner budget? Where would you cut it?
We've seen it before where people have come up from the floor at town meeting and propose amendments to the articles as presented, and everybody can do that. And then the people that are there vote on it.
Yeah. But, I mean, let's be frank. You've said this the past 2 years. You're coming at the end of the process. You can't really make changes now at the voting phase. It's, the ninth inning, kind of thing. You should be here at the first budget hearing. Well, that's why I'm here at the first budget meeting.
And we appreciate that you're here. Additional comments from the public? Anything? Got some faces in the back who haven't spoke. I do, though. Yeah. I do.
We'll do that in private.
Okay, well, my email address is very easy to figure out. Feel free to, or my phone number. I give it out. Happy to talk one-on-one. I do know, between YouTube and this group, it can be intimidating. Will is very confident, and I appreciate that he's able to come and speak. But seriously, we do want input. And hopefully, despite some of our disagreements, that it's clear that we want that input and that we want to try to do the right thing here. So if you're more comfortable with one-on-one, shoot me an email or call me. The town manager has got a very open door policy, and we'll talk with anyone, anytime. So I'm volunteering Scott to talk to a bunch of people. But no, seriously.
Chris and Brian can know that I have an open door policy, right? Okay.
Yeah. And seriously, we do. I mean, the budget committee is only as effective as the input we have in being able to do the work. And, Jess got to see some of that this year and how that goes. So anyway, appreciate everybody's attendance. And I guess I will close the budget hearing. And if anybody has thoughts, we'd love to hear them again between now and Thursday or on Thursday.
So Scott, we finally get to you.
Town manager's report.
Town manager's report.
So just to be clear, the only change that has been made to the budget is that one change.
Reduction of 25,000 on
the
town hall
town
energy
hall.
efficiency.
That's one we're definitely going to do.
Yep.
Oh,
Is the board, anything else that the board wants to change tonight? Or
I feel like the only other truly actionable thing, if we want to have a discussion at all as a board, is the nonprofit conversation.
Okay.
I mean, at this point,
I'd rather have that discussion at town meeting.
yep.
that the right thing is to have it at town
I
meeting.
think we should
and not
leave,
for
I
us
think
to-
we should leave it as a budget, as a line item in there and allow it to be amended from the floor.
So
Then I would ask that we also identify, and maybe Ann can, right off the top of her head, what that $62,000 impact
It's
on tax.
Oh.
20 cents, right?
It just.
8 cents.
8 cents.
8 cents.
8 cents.
So
Nonprofits are 8
what we
cents.
support
8
now.
cents per thousand.
What we support
Yeah. 8
now
cents
with
per
that
thousand.
$62,000
Right.
is the Katie's, is VAV, are very community-based organizations. We're not talking the Red Cross.
I'm not talking about the Red Cross.
We're talking
Yeah.
the community. And for 8 cents, it seems like a small amount. Those organizations, having sat on those boards, do not have folks who are focused on fundraising. They don't have the staffing.
Yeah.
10%, the old rule, right? 10% of the people do 90% of the work. And that's what you find on those boards. And
What if we, just as an intellectual exercise,
Sure, please.
if we looked at Katie,
Yep.
love and respect their mission deeply. They own
Page
the
12
building.
of the budget.
Page 12 of the budget.
Yep.
I believe they are, do you have the number that we're allocated? It's like,
80?
4,900?
6,500 this year.
6,500.
Sorry.
They have a building in town that they're tax exempt on that's probably a $15,000 tax exemption. I don't know the exact number, but it's probably not more than 15,000, just thinking about the
Jack,
building.
we're losing some of your conversation in the back. Because of the conversation going on.
If we have conversations happening, hallway is better, but thank you all. So theoretically, the town's already giving them
A donation.
a donation in.
Well, so
it's not a
typically
donation, right? It's
we're
not
actually
operating
not
costs.
giving them a donation, but Katie, Pemmy Youth, who do they support? They support the youth in the community, and in fact support families in the community, right? We don't now have to pay for my 10-year-old to get coverage for
After-school care.
childcare, and for 8 cents, it
So, yeah, and that 8
No, I
cent,
follow.
so just to put 8 cents in context, 8 cents on the tax rate is $40 in a year on a house worth $500,000.
right.
You got a house worth $500,000?
I'm just saying, like, if you pick a house
doing
that's
that.
worth $500,000 because it's a round number,
Yes.
8 cents on the tax rate is $40 a year.
Is it okay to say something? Because I don't know if it's okay.
We're not in the
We're not in
public
public
hearing,
comment.
but
Is it all right?
I will take questions in a moment.
Fair enough.
So the budget committee, or even the nonprofit committee, has evaluated those folks. $15,000. They're getting certain amount of money from us, and they have deemed it appropriate. So much like the other discussions, please sit on those organizations and hear the impact of that $40. I have a $300,000. That $40 a year truly has impact on. That $40 more is only a little piece of what I would pay for childcare if I had a 10-year-old.
I'll say that, we're looking at some of the hot button topics in the state right now are housing affordability, cost of childcare, and a lot of these, the Katie, even senior care. If anybody's had parents that that are aging, the three big costs in the nonprofit sector. There's $12,000 for the senior center. There's $6,500 for Voices Against. $6,500 for Tri-County Gap, which helps income qualified families. There's $6,500 for Katie. There's $6,500 for the Pemmy Youth Center, $6,000 for Katie. I mean, these are Yes, there is an impact to individual taxpayers on this, but it's also there's a lot of good that gets done by these organizations. There's the return on investment for this money is high,
Right?
but it's still something that should be up to the
No,
voters to
absolutely. These issues should be discussed. I'm just uncomfortable with a blanket, let's get rid of it, without understanding the
Right.
impact. I also feel, and rightfully so, right, non-tax in this town, we pay a large amount, but, or we're not getting a large amount. But, so the folks who are doing the local work are now, we have a bad taste. I'm not saying, but we have a bad taste for giving $40 a year to very locally based. Unfortunately, it is at the state level. Why do all these organizations not have to pay
So,
income tax?
I mean, at this point in the process, like, I would be hesitant for us to remove it, as I would imagine those organizations are budgeting and expecting that. I agree with Bill. If it's going to be removed, it should be done at the town meeting on a floor motion. And it's something that the budget committee should consider moving forward in the next budget cycle of, reduction, if not removal of these donations, if that's something that we see from the process in town meeting. I'm of
generally
the ilk
agree,
that
although,
these
you
are,
know,
the return on investment for these, and this investment is high.
I came in tonight feeling the same way, Jason, but, when Mike stood up at the podium and said, I'm thinking differently about this after 6 years on the nonprofit committee.
I understand that.
That was an affecting statement for me personally.
I agree with that. I don't think I agree with the extent of willing to remove it from this budget this year, but something to obviously consider in the future.
Yeah, Mike should not be disregarded. I think that's Jason's point, is have that discussion so we understand the impact as opposed to a blanket statement and not getting, Mike's viewpoint, our viewpoint, and are we misaligned? So one other thing, so Scott and I had talked, Habitat for Humanity, nonprofit. I think part of Habitat for Humanity is building homes, in Plymouth. And guess what? When they sell those homes, we get property tax on that.
They do.
So there's all these, it's not just nonprofits, it's not just a line item. There are all these implications. It's important to weigh them all and to have conversations.
Right. Well, and we know that people who work at the hospital or work at Mid-State or work at Plymouth State live in our community and pay taxes.
Absolutely.
They're some of the largest employers in our community. So
Absolutely.
it isn't as always as black and white as nonprofits bad.
I will say that the budget we're carrying for nonprofits this year is roughly what we carried last year, but that's roughly a third drop of what we carried for them 2 years ago.
Correct. We had like 3 years in a row where we reduced, and this year is the first year we've done a small uptick.
Very small.
Very small.
It's almost flat.
Very small.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
May I say something on that subject?
I will take a public comment, yes.
So,
Just reintroduce yourself, just so we don't.
Annie Schneider.
Thank you, Annie.
So this is just something I want to put out having to do with what you're saying. Like, it doesn't matter. I grew up in the church. My dad was a minister. Like, it was like all about public service. That's how I grew up. And I feel the same way. It's local, blah, blah, blah. And I don't mean to dismiss what you're saying.
Okay.
There are so many sources out there now. It's not what, you're not as old as me, but it's not what.
Bet I am.
Let's not talk about that. It's not what we grew up with. And I'm very nostalgic. And I want people to be well fed. I want old people to be taken care of. I really want all of that. I don't have a 10-year-old kid, hallelujah. But, and I understand we need home, we need all these things. When these businesses that are now developing, because they're just not the old-fashioned, or maybe some of them are living in an old-fashioned world, in the world that you and I relate to. But when they go out and do some of the work and actually find more resources, that $40 is going to be multiplied many times over, because there are better sources. There are all kinds of sources. I can give you a few that are written on here, but I don't, I'm not going to do it in justice because it's not my language. Kathy could tell you all the stuff. And there are people in town who excel at it and would be happy to help these groups. So what I'm saying is, I don't care. If you don't take it off, you don't take it off. Whatever. I'm not moving out yet. But I would like to see these people, if they start to, and I don't know who they are, if they start to make a change and they start to look into other resources, it might be the best thing that ever happened for them. So I think that there might be a little bit of a learning curve. There are people to help. But I think, $40 on a $500,000 home, it's just all the little things, it's just all the little things. I do believe that as these people don't generally, as these businesses and industries don't have to pay property taxes, I know some of them do donate. I personally feel like those of us who are taxpayers, we do foot that bill. And I think that's a huge thing. I got a fundraiser thing from a Mid-State Health or Antlers or something one time, and it just bummed me out because I was like, I'm doing all I can. So anyway, it's not through harsh thinking. I do love that it's local. I do have a heart. I do donate to all kinds of things. I still want that to be my choice. So anyway, thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks, Ann.
Thanks, Annie. Board, was there anything else that was actionable enough for us to talk about as a board from that conversation?
I don't believe so, no.
No, I don't think so.
So we'll be going into Thursday's meeting with the warrant written with these numbers as amended.
Unless something changes between now and then, yes.
Thank you. I just want to know what we're working on.
She smirked at you.
That's what we're working on, Ann.
Keep up with you.
And as we go through those warrant articles, the board will vote to recommend or not recommend given articles. And there may be articles on that warrant that as a board we choose not to recommend.
Correct.
Just throwing that out there as well.
Yep.
The recommendations really need to come for the money articles. And then if there's any other articles that you have a passion about, you can put recommendations or no recommendations on those.
Since we have an audience, and they may or may not come back on Thursday, there is a complicated warrant situation this year, which I will just briefly address. We received a petitioned warrant article, 2 petitioned warrant articles, but one of those petitioned warrant articles, the way it was constructed is unlawful.
Unenforceable.
Unenforceable, right? It does not meet the specifications of the RSA. However, the RSA that we have to abide is that any petition warrant article that comes to us must be put on the warrant, regardless of whether it is lawfully enforceable or not. So we reached out as a board to the petitioners and said, hey, this is the situation. You have enough time to correct the language on your warrant article and submit a second version of this warrant article. Both of those warrant articles, the one they resubmitted and the original, will appear on the ballot. Because that's the law. Both of those warrant articles will appear on the ballot. One of them is lawfully enforceable and the other is not. So if the town votes for the first one, it effectively will be meaningless. We will, as a board, have to say, hey, we received this, we received the will of the people, but we can't enforce this. If they both pass, that's simple because the second one sort of says what the first one should have, and it's enforceable. If the first one passes and the second one doesn't pass, boy, that's going to create a complicated situation for all of us. Just saying it now for the beauty of YouTube and the few people that are in the audience. And actually, if anybody here has any questions about any of that or wants to comment on that, I would happily provide clarification or context for anyone there, because it is, it's just an unfortunate situation. We always were very respectful of written warrant articles. We always want to follow the law on that stuff. If you're ever in the future considering a petition warrant article, it's totally valuable to come to the town and say, hey, would you mind running this by your lawyer before? Because we would have, we're here to serve you all. So in the future, it's great to talk to us and not just show up.
Before you go too far, I just want to make sure that the board knows that we do have a public hearing on this petition warrant article on the 23rd. We did not publish that public hearing tonight. There might be additional.
Yeah, so I don't want to get into like the opinions of whether it's good or not or whatever, but if anybody has any questions about the clarifications around why we have a slightly chaotic warrant article situation, I'll happily answer those questions. Jess.
Jessica Mayhew. Thank you. There's no way for me to retract the first one, is there? No. Okay.
There is not.
Because if that was like something that I could do, then I would do that.
We would have advised you to do so if we could have.
Yeah, okay.
We did ask counsel.
We met with counsel to say, how can we help cure this problem?
Okay.
And he said, you can't.
Great. Sorry.
Which is why we wrote to you. And it's, again, no harm, no foul. It is what it is. It just creates a slightly awkward ballot.
Okay. But then just to confirm, the second one that I did submit with the revised RSA language, that one is enforceable.
Correct.
We had council review it, and council believed that it fit all of the requirements that are allowed in legislation. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Zach, if I may.
Yes, please.
I just want to caution the select board is that I understand what you said about being transparent and doing our due diligence and having town council review that. But always keep in mind that by drafting the language for them, the town risks blurring the line between a citizen-led initiative and a town-sanctioned one. And that's very important to realize that under RSA 39:3, is that truly can blur the lines between town-sanctioned and a private citizen initiative.
Yeah, agreed. This is very much a private citizen, just for super clarity, it is a private citizen initiative. The town's only involvement in it was just to confirm legality of it and we didn't draft it. We only advised on, hey, we understand what your intent is here and you're not going to achieve it with what you wrote the first time. So that's not us taking a position one way or the other on that particular warrant article.
I just want to make sure that we are never using public funds for a citizen-led initiative for a private warrant article.
I think you have a question in the audience.
And there was only a short period of time.
The podium.
If the warrant article had come in today or tomorrow, that availability wouldn't have been there.
Correct. There would have been no opportunity to fix it, yeah. Was there another question from the back or clarification? We all good? Thank you for handling it. All right, so we're going to move on from budget to Scott and the town manager's report.
You want to take care of the other business and I can do my report under committee reports. We have Becky.
Oh yeah, let's help Becky get out of here sometime today.
Yeah.
Becky, we're going to move you to the front of the line and have you talk about survey results, strategic plan, and the library in general.
Hey,
Grace, your audio's breaking up. Grace, we can't hear you, but I think you're trying to talk to us.
radical increase in the value of homes overall.
Sales tax to offset property taxes.
Oh, right, thank you.
I am going to stop.
You want to see her?
Grace is asking for the camera to be shifted to people who are speaking.
Oh,
We don't control
I think Jonathan
Yeah.
just stepped out.
that's good advice.
I'm doing that. I'm not necessarily sure. Oh wait, hang on. I think I know what might be wrong. Could I see the mouse for a moment, Jason?
Sorry, Ann.
Jason broke it. It's all Jason's fault.
You know what?
Oh, it's
Thought you
the
said
camera that's
Jason is
selected.
broken.
Wrong camera?
Because when we got here,
Right.
we didn't have.
Oh, because we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
Well, not on
I
the
I didn't do that, by the
they
way.
probably weren't.
Me either.
I would like the record to show Jason did not set up the Zoom.
All right, so we've confirmed it's Jason's fault.
Sounds good. You guys can keep going.
Zach, there's things I would like to say to you.
Put him on the record, Jason. All right, Becky.
All right. So as probably most people know, over the summer, the library, we put out a community survey because we haven't had a strategic plan since I think the addition was done, at least that I could find. So first, I just want to thank everybody who submitted the survey. We had about 85 responses, which was more than I was expecting. So that was great for me. Had about 65 we did a digital survey and a paper survey. So 65 were done digitally, 20 were on paper. We had roughly about half of the responses were Plymouth residents, which is great. So we took all that data, and that's what we created a very fancy strategic plan, which I am super excited about. That is now on the library's website. It was approved by my board of trustees January, because we're in February now. So this will hopefully just guide us with how to take the library into the future and all the amazing community stuff that we get to do, or that everyone has said they would like us to do. One of the biggest things, which was also my goal when I became director almost two years ago now, is to foster more community partnerships, because we have a lot of great organizations in town and we don't do much with them for the library. So
Look at it.
as I said, I brought enough for everyone on the select board
thank
and
you.
Scott and Ann. So so there is that. I also gave you just for you to see the all my wonderful statistics from 2025. As librarian, we love statistics, and I actually have to submit these every year to the state library as part of the Institute Museum and Library Services annual reporting. So we had over 35,000 checkouts last year across the whole collection. And
How many returns did you get?
I don't track those, just how many times they go out. But we had almost 16,000 either e-audiobooks or e-books were used through the New Hampshire Downloadables Consortium that the library pays into, that's provided by the state library or facilitated by the state library, that every citizen in New Hampshire can get a library card and use Overdrive or Libby.
Highly recommend it.
Yes.
And I will also say we are in the works to getting Hoopla MPs, so that's keep an eye out for that. It's another ebook and actually has movies and TV shows too. So for anyone interested, we either loaned out to other libraries or got books from other libraries. We had almost 2,500 of those requests, which is a great service that, again, the state library funds. That they provide the software that we use to get to either place requests for our patrons for items that we don't have at Pease, or to provide what other libraries, especially we were just talking about being in a rural area. There's a lot of tiny libraries, and especially north of us, that don't have as big a collection. So we do at Pease, so they highly use that service. So we, had about 500 of those. We had 150 museum passes, which are all funded by the Young Ladies Library Association. They are very generous. They founded the library almost 150 years ago, or over 150 years ago. And they are so generous to provide our museum passes, which unfortunately, like, only one of them gets you in free somewhere anymore. A lot of them used to be free. But you get as like hugely discounted rate for the most part. I think the most you might have to pay for one of them is maybe like a $20 like admission ticket. So yeah, those are all the fun stats. I also gave you all the programs that we provided, and these are broken down on how I have to report them. Offered in general, 2025, we offered 388 different programs and had 3,141 people come to all of them, which is amazing. We had almost 45,000 people come in the library, whether it was just to check out stuff or just to use our wonderful meeting spaces downstairs. We had 1,400 people use those specific meeting rooms, and that was 3,500 people just came in just to use their computers, which we got some brand new ones. I would highly suggest you come check them out. I am super excited about them. They were we got the funds to provide new computers. That was kindly donated, because a lot of ours, they were, I think we had maybe 3 out of the 6 working at one point in time. And that's one of a big draw for our patrons. Any questions about that stuff?
I have one. Good statistics. Do you have any trend analysis that shows what's been happening year over year to give a sense of change in behavior of people?
In terms of any specific, like what's like books checked,
Well,
or
I mean,
like people coming or going?
Circulation stats, for example, you say you have 35,000 if you add it all up. What does it look like over year? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing?
We are gradually increasing. I don't have the exact 2024 numbers off the top of my head, but I do for the Board of Trustees meeting, which are also public meetings, so anyone can come. I break it down from there is a month by there is a trend. I would say December 2025 had more circulation than December 2024. So it's like we have been seeing a steady increase, which is great, especially current climates and all that. People still love their public library.
And one follow-up question.
Yeah.
Do you use that trend analysis to determine things that may no longer be required because no one's using it?
Yep. I'll say we do that probably on if not yearly, like several times a year basis on like what services, what are still being used that people want. I know in the past we've had different databases and other online services that we'll give it maybe a year and then evaluate the pricing and be like, well, maybe we might push it for another year, see if we can increase advertising. But sometimes it doesn't. But we do evaluate all the time. And I also got, I'll put these up front. But so, some fun stuff coming up at the library. We have, what's the biggest? So we have an author talk next week. Laura Noy is coming to talk about her book, The Shopkeeper of Alsace. She is a local author. Catherine Harrington at PSU actually put me in touch with her, and it's like, I think she'd be a great talk for a book. So that's going to be fun. I know we had a huge turnout for Ty Gagney last month, if anyone came. It was hard to get into a room. I apologize if any of you had to stand outside. That was a great success. We have see what else we got. We got tech workshops. My assistant director and tech librarian Kim does monthly technology work, or pretty much monthly technology workshops. The next one is on Microsoft Word. If anyone, it is designed to be a beginner course. So if you're familiar with Word but want to go further, that's you can set up a one-on-one tech time with Kim, and she can go in more detail. But this is definitely for like an intro to Word. We have during the February vacation, we have Life Size Connect 4 happening in the community room. It's gonna be fun if you love life size. Our life size board games we've done. What we did Trouble one year. We did another one, I forget what it was, and those have always been a huge hit. Anyone can sign up and do it. It is for adults too. I've
done it. I think you have some special readers coming in this week.
They canceled on me.
Oh.
But I'll also put out anyone on, if anyone on the select board would like to do a story time at Pease, we'd be more than happy to have you. We do story times Wednesdays at 10:15 and Thursdays at 11, but I know those are right during the workday, so we could happily.
Do I get to make up my own stories, or do I have to?
You could do whatever you like. But I'll say, Scott has done story times. I think we've had the fire come and do story times. So,
Steve, you available this week? There you go, Becky.
Okay.
Becky, do you have a newsletter?
As long as it doesn't snow.
You do.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, I need to sign up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it just came. The February's one just came out.
Okay, thank
Today.
you.
So,
today.
I don't on that list.
Question. Mike, you could read Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel. That'd be a big hit. It is a great book.
I say we usually we do a theme for story time. If we know you guys can, we do have the theme around.
Awesome.
Like police was supposed to come Wednesday, but something came up and they're not able to come. But our theme this week is around law enforcement. I know we did, I think, town politics when Scott came into a story time. We've done books when fires come. So anyone in town departments or select board, we would be happy to have you for story time. Just let me know.
Scott, do we have a link to their newsletter in your newsletter? And
I don't
vice
believe so.
versa?
I don't believe so.
Could we?
We can ask Dan. Sure.
Could we have a link to yours too? So that you would link to Scott's newsletter and he would link to yours to get the viewership up a little bit?
Yeah, can certainly do that.
I think that's a great idea. Any other questions for Becky? Anything else for us?
No, thank you for doing what you're doing though.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you sitting through everything tonight.
Yeah.
You have a link. It's called
Okay, that gets Becky out of here.
How do we get out of here?
I gotta drop it at 8:15.
We've done that. We want to talk about the tax cap thing at all, Scott?
I guess my opinion is it will cripple the town if we were to put a tax cap levy of 3%. And it would be extremely detrimental to any infrastructure projects, any personnel, union negotiations. It will truly cripple this town, and it would be my recommendation for the board not to recommend this warrant article.
Mike, as long as there was an actionable petition submitted, we don't need to provide an alternate.
Just wanted to make sure.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, I think there's strong alignment on that. Okay, and we already did all the signature file. Let's go all the way back to Scott's town manager report to start the meeting.
I will skip over the points that we've already covered tonight.
Awesome.
Excellent.
So I will skip over the budget process, the Plymouth Village Water and Sewer. That's just an update based on, they'll be starting back up April of 2026. We talked about the Plymouth State University Police Services. We talked about the public safety land purchase. We talked about the Town Hall Energy Audit Report. The one thing we haven't discussed is a Hazard Mitigation 2026 Plan Update. The committee has met on 3 occasions. We have reviewed the mitigation goals to include problem statements, vulnerable assets, reviewed and updated our critical facilities, reviewed and updated capability assessment chapters, updated mitigation projects from our current 2021 plan, and identified new mitigation projects. We are in hopes to have a draft to the board in late October. We've talked about the Highway Department winter snow removal policy in the past. Meet the Plymouth candidates. I think this is an important one that Amy has put out the public notice on who has signed up for offices. There were 2 select board member 3-year term, Marianne Barnsley and Zachary Tyrell. 1 town treasurer 3-year term, Carol Gertie. 1 supervisor of the checklist, 6-year term, Mary Nelson. 1 trustee of the trust fund, 3-year term, Michael Courier. 2 library trustees, 3-year term, James Corrin and Joyce Weston. 1 cemetery trustee, 3-year term, Doug McLean. 2 planning board members, 3-year term, Thomas Newcomb and John Christ. 2 planning board member, 2-year term, Neil McIver and Molly McCain. And 1 planning board member, 1-year term, Bill Bolton. So meet the candidates. That is going to take place February 18th at 6:30 p.m. in the Pease Public Library. It will be broadcasted by Pemmy Baker TV. We were in touch with Mary Beth Bentwood today, who will be reaching out to the candidates to get them scheduled for the night, candidates night on February 18th. And that really summarizes my report to what I had, Zach.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions for Scott about any of those topics? Okay. Kills everything on the front page, all of our normal, so we just have committee reports.
Sewer and Water, they met on January 13th. We have a new commissioner. Malik Hammond is a new commissioner on there. I'm going to be really brief and hit just the really major points for this meeting. They are putting potential projects but won't go through unless funding is secured, but need to have warrants passed in order to get funding. So they're going to put out a warrant for Fairground Road improvements, warrant for Lingdon improvements, and a warrant for sewer pump station 4 upgrades. And then they discussed their budget. The rates are estimated to increase about 5% year over year. They're working on, like we have done, try to keep it as flat and as possible. The gross budget looks higher than 2025, but that's because they're paying down debt. And so if you factor off that debt pay down, the increase is within an understandable increase. And then once again, they're just dealing with a lot of things that we're dealing with of certain costs of things are going up. Their electric bill is up 15%, propane's up 30%, chemicals are at least down. And part of that is because the Holderness well requires less chemicals with that becoming online. So, trying to think. Those are all the major things that need to be talked about.
All right. Thank you.
Planning board met on the 22nd. There were no, we had already approved the 4 warrant articles to go to the voters, so there was really not much on that. There was some discussion about scheduling upcoming meetings and hearings for the master plan housing chapter update, which is we're working on with grant funding. There was discussion. There was a request from the road agent. Steve brought in a current issue of lack of snow storage on one of the projects that was affected by one of the projects that was recently approved, and suggested that we incorporate minimum dimensional standards for hammerheads in our subdivision regulations, which received broad support from the board. I think the consensus of the board is that we're going to wait for the new board to be seated and make it an agenda item to review that, in addition to other issues that have come up with the subdivision regulations, and potentially update the subdivision regulations and maybe even site plan regulations again in the next year. There's an opportunity to update both of those, and the planning board does make recommendations to change the zoning ordinance that have to be approved by town meeting, but the subdivision regulations and site plan regulations can be amended by a vote of the board after public hearing without input from the town. So that's something that may happen in the next few months as well, with some input. So I will do my best to notify this group when there are hearings scheduled on subdivision and site plan regulations. Other than that, there was just general discussion about changes to planning board rules of procedure. That board is still figuring out how to adapt to changes in structure as a result of the town vote last year to make the positions elected. So as we know, alternates to the planning board are still appointed by the select board until after town meeting next year, when all the members of the planning board are elected. Then they will have the power to appoint their own alternates and interim appointments for vacancies. So if there are any
Planning board seeing much interest for alternates?
I don't think we've received much new interest to serve as alternates, but I would. It sounds like there will be, based on the candidates that are running, it sounds like there will be opportunity for alternates. I think at this point we have one alternate.
I was just thinking, with every one of those open positions running unopposed,
Yep.
the
But there is
desire to be an
still
alternate may be lower
there's
than
an existing alternate who's seated, but there's probably room for more alternates if other people, if being an alternate is a great way to learn about what the planning board does. If you're thinking about running, you can attend the meetings. Even if you're not voting, there's a lot to learn and get up to speed with. So it's a great way to understand the planning process in the town. So if anybody, I will make that plea publicly. If anybody wants to be an alternate on the planning board, all you have to do is submit a letter of interest to the select board.
for the next 13 months.
That's all.
Any questions for Phil? Ed?
Let's see, Plymouth Elementary School, they had their meeting tonight that we couldn't attend. I couldn't attend because I was here. The high school meets tomorrow at 5.
That's their deliberative session, right?
I would have to go back and double check. I
believe it is.
I'm pretty sure. Okay, Conservation?
Conservation Commission met on the 20th. We had Laura Solokowski from the Grafton County Conservation District. This is the first time we had seen someone from that role come in. She basically came in, gave an introduction to us. She's, I guess, been in the position for 3 or 4 months, and how she could help muster some resources to help the Plymouth Conservation Commission through workshops, things about stream restoration. Basically, it was a conversation about the services they offer, and she's based herself out of Lebanon and has an office in Haverhill. So that was topic 1. We did have a presentation by Luke Hurley. He Environmental and Planning LLC about an application for a self-storage unit that I'm sure Phil knows all about on Yetton Road. Mostly the conversation was there about runoff, what they were planning to do with plowed snow, which was not in their plan. The commission basically asked for that snow plow pile landing zone. Where, when they plow it, where's it gonna go? They don't want it to be into the runoff because it's got salts and what have you in it. So they agreed, Luke agreed to come back and present an amended plan that had that in it for the Conservation Commission to get behind. They don't ultimately have an approval, but they can
Endorse.
endorse, yeah. Pemby Baker Trails had a meeting on 1/12. They inducted a new member, Emily Magnus, I think it was, onto the steering committee. So they had a very good partnership with the folks with in getting a lot of Summit Drive is bordered by woods that is ultimately near the Walter Newton area. Not Walter, the Kensington Woods, sorry. And they're talking about, creating a partnership so they can have unofficial trails from those property owners join into the trail system. So they would become, shared and publicly available. And that's pretty much all of the big items.
All right. Any questions for Ted? Have we heard anything from LRPC?
No, sir.
Parks and Rec?
No, I think I should have asked Lisa tonight. I think we're supposed to meet again at the end of this month, February.
Okay. Energy?
The Energy Commission has not met since our last meeting, but there was a meeting to review the results of the energy audit, which Scott covered in his report. There was also, Ashley and I also met with the Library Commission to talk about a potential development project there. That's one of the facilities in town that has one of the highest electric loads and might be suitable for additional solar capacity, like for behind the meter solar to offset their electric load. I think they use 80 to 100,000 kilowatt hours a year. It's a significant amount of electric use. But they were receptive to the concept of adding solar, but I think one of the hiccups we found is that we were thinking of potentially covered parking over the parking lot and realized that that's not actually owned by the town. That's part of the bank property. So there was a Scott.
Isn't there
I'll
a
follow up
conversation
with
about
you.
that?
Grace is
Hi,
commenting.
Grace.
Hi, Grace.
Sorry.
Oh, no, when it's my turn.
Okay. Scott,
so
isn't there a conversation about resolving the ownership issues on the parking lot?
Didn't we? There was a minor boundary line adjustment for the building, right?
The boundary line adjustment has not been completed yet.
Okay.
I talked to Frank McLean on Friday.
Is it possible to expand that to include the parking lot?
Yes.
Okay.
That adjustment
be great.
will include the parking lot, right?
Will include the parking
That's the
lot.
whole intent.
Well, okay. So for some reason, I was recollecting there was an alignment issue with the building on the sideline.
Boundary line adjustment will be including the building, the sidewalk, and the entirety of the parking lot.
That would be wonderful.
Cool.
In that case, I think there might be a potential solar project that the Energy Commission will be interested in investigating moving forward. Potentially a structure over the parking lot with a fairly good size array to cover that electric load. But again, we're cognizant of costs, and it would have to have a good payback period, and maybe not now, but it's the Energy Commission is interested in investigating those opportunities. Grace, did you want to add to my thoughts?
Yeah, that would be great. So 2 things I would just add is that we are also, in terms of the energy audit of the town hall, we are about to reach out to a couple more contractors to give us cost estimates for doing the work that was initially outlined in the audit. So we're about to, I actually am working with Brian to get some language together to approve at the town level to send out to a couple more weatherization contractors. So that's one thing. The second thing is not only are you, Phil and Ashley, looking at the library, but Maggie's looking at potentially the area behind I guess it would be to the east of the existing PV array across from the airport for possible addition of panels. And I'm looking at the closed portion of the landfill, so we can get together some thoughts and cost estimates and, you know, long-term proposals. This is all just conceptual at this point. So we will add to that conversation as we go forward with our research. Hope that makes sense.
Thank you, Grace.
Anything else? Any questions for Phil? Chamber of Commerce?
Before we go too far, can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
I looked up the Plymouth Regional High School Board agenda, and they changed the time to 5:45 for the actual meeting before the deliberative session,
Oh, okay.
not 5 o'clock. Sorry.
Thank you.
Now I'm off track.
Now you're all confused.
Chamber of Commerce?
Chamber meets next Thursday.
Okay.
How are you off track with that?
I'm easily
Distracted.
squirrel. You know, there's that whole.
All right.
Perlac?
Yes, just a few things they discussed at their last meeting was they discussed the legislative updates, the Little Red Schoolhouse Campton Shoreland permit in Campton, the Owl's Nest Riverside Development update for Owl's Nest Golf Course, the Bristol roadway maintenance plan. They discussed winter salt week, and they discussed the White Mountain Country Club vineyard updates. And that was it.
Okay. Police and fire building. There's no updates. Just looking for visual confirmation from the chiefs. Union negotiations, those are complete for now. Economic development.
We were supposed to meet tonight, but because of the storm, we are shooting for the 17th.
Okay.
This month to meet again.
Of February?
Of February, yes. Email went out. Hopefully everyone can join.
All right, that completes our formal agenda. Any public comments? Additional public comments? All right, seeing none.
Motion to adjourn?
You can't.
Oh,
Well, we have the motion and the second.
Was it seconded?
It was, yeah.
What?
Okay.
Do we have anything from non-public? This, I think real estate may
I have this.
I'd asked her to leave. Oh, we can do that at the next meeting.
You're good with that? Okay.
That's what the non-public was for.
That's what the non-public was for, yeah.
We can vote nay on the motion to adjourn
Yeah,
if you
that's
want to, if you want to handle it.
Which one was that?
You dying to vote nay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get other people to vote nay.
Just call for a vote.
It's a long discussion on a
Sealed
Debatable
non-
motion.
debatable motion.
Sealed non-public minutes.
Let's do that later.
Next, we
There
can
you
wait.
go.
There is
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Not even Phil tonight.
Said nay.
Nope. I think we all did.
Oh, wait, wait.